Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Хто води всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 947 of the news. And it's good to see you all once again. And Hezbollah is in trouble. Their headquarters has been destroyed. It's a terrible moment for them, but a great moment for Israel. And also, we have big news out of Ukraine as well. It's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of news from around the world as we started to hear that Israeli forces have begun massive bombardments today against the entirety of the nation of Lebanon, striking at Hezbollah command, conducting a decapitation attack, most likely killing Nasrallah inside of the attack, according to Israeli sources. And not only that, declaring evacuation zones along the border of Lebanon, as well as through multiple different areas inside of the nation, showing that Israel is on a war path at this point. And as far as we are concerned, war has begun with the nation of Lebanon and the Hezbollah forces inside of that country. We also have incredibly massive news coming out of Ukraine today, as unknown strikes have rained down around the city of Tambov, causing a significant amount of destruction. And not only that, we have seen a decent amount of combat action unfolding today from Ukrainian forces attacking, targeting, and destroying Russian forces continuing to conduct their offensive efforts. Most of those offensive efforts have largely been accumulated today in complete failure, and it does appear that the Ukrainian armed forces are holding their ground quite valiantly and making sure that the Russians will not be able to gain a single inch farther than what they have. But to get us into the massive and major news that we have today, we're actually going to be moving on down into the Middle East, because while Ukraine is, of course, the largest conventional war going on in the world right now, things have certainly kicked off in the Middle East today, and most likely permanently, as we were able to see that massive attacks were conducted inside of Beirut just hours ago. Inside the capital of Beirut, the capital of Lebanon, is an incredibly large Hezbollah contingent. Not only do they operate as a semi-official government inside the nation of Lebanon and largely what keeps Lebanon running for the most part throughout most of the country, they also run the Hezbollah forces in the southern area of Lebanon, south of the Litani River. We were able to see that their headquarters inside of a suburb near to the Beirut International Airport, which I'll actually be showing y'all right here. This area is apparently called Dania, somewhere around this area, and this is where the Hezbollah bunker used to command all of their armed forces within the region is located. From what we understand, the leader, or one of the leaders of Hezbollah named Nasrallah, was in this compound at the time that this strike happened. We were able to see footage coming out right when the strike occurred, showing us that there was a massive barrage of Israeli bombs that landed into the area, practically leveling the entire city block that this headquarters was in. Here's the footage that we got from the ground of that strike.
Hey, that's huge.
Rolling thunder right there. A carpet bombing, literally.
Bunker busters galore.
And when you see the cameraman looking around, for some reason zooming in and out a great deal, I have no idea why, but still showing us the scale of the Israeli airstrike that occurred in this specific area of the city. From what we understand, an entire 6 buildings in the area were destroyed, and we were able to get a picture of the scene from the ground almost right after the strike occurred, and it was laid to waste. Down there inside the rubble is the Hezbollah command bunker, but all of the buildings that were above this bunker were also destroyed as well inside the blast. Fires raging from inside of the compound, and also from the fallen debris of the buildings that once existed in the area where this airstrike was conducted. It was insane the amount of damage that was caused in this specific area, and from what we understand, the Israelis made sure to put as much overwhelming firepower as possible into this area to destroy the bunker. We then got to see about an hour or two after the strike occurred that the Lebanese government and Hezbollah had sent groups into the area to start clearing out the rubble and try and figure out what was left, or if anyone was left that was inside the command bunker, which we can see right here. Sources.
The interesting thing about this enforcer is Nasrallah and his little small entourage of people that went into the bunker right at the moment when it got hit. This is allegedly based on information that we have. They would not have gone there had Netanyahu not gone to New York to attend a UN event. He would not have gone there, according to Israeli reports. So apparently, Netanyahu going to New York was part of the plan to lure Nasrallah into this bunker and then smash it when he was overseas in the United States. So I think that's the story at the moment. If Nasrallah was indeed taken out, which right now it's still up in the air a little bit, but it sounds like he was probably down there.
Interesting to hear. I actually didn't know that part of the story today. I was looking more so at everything else that was happening with the strike, but that is a very interesting bit of information to get right there, because from what we know, there has been mixed sources about this, and I'll tell you all about the time window that we've been hearing these sources today and what they've been saying about a specific person that was involved in this strike, or at least was the target of this strike, which was Hassan Nasrallah, who is the Secretary General of Hezbollah. To get y'all a real quick picture, some of y'all may actually realize this guy because he's the guy on our thumbnail tonight. He was apparently the specific target that was hit by the Israeli Defense Forces Air Forces today. And of course, that's allegedly at the moment, because I'm going to tell y'all everything that we heard. Initially, in the first hour of the strike, Hezbollah forces were coming out and they were saying that Nasrallah was alive and that he had somehow survived the airstrike, or he just simply wasn't even in the area. I want to make sure that everyone is reminded of this. They also did the same thing when the president of Iran died in a helicopter crash in northern Iran. For the longest time, they were actually saying that he was alive and that the helicopter had some sort of a soft crash landing in the mountains, and that they were going to find him and recover him, and he was once again going to return back to his office in Tehran. And then later on, it was found out that he was dead. So these first initial reports, of course, had no backing whatsoever, but were the first reports we were hearing of the day. So we were giving them a little bit more credence than normal, considering that that was the only thing we had. But as the days started to pass, the Israeli Defense Forces started to come out, such as Yoav Gallant, who is the Secretary of Defense, or the Minister of Defense inside of Israel. He started to state that the amount of explosive mass, and due to their intelligence letting them know that Nasrallah was more than likely inside that bunker at the time of the strike, said that Nasrallah had to have been dead, because there was really no way that anyone could have survived the sheer amount of bombs that were landed on that bunker at a single time, and the destruction that came from that. So from what we largely know, Nasrallah, well, right now, Nasrallah is Schrodinger's Nasrallah. We don't really know if he's alive or dead at the moment. There has been no confirmation, however, since the initial statements that weren't really backed up that he was alive to confirm he really is alive. So we're kind of leaning towards the category he may have been killed. We do know that a lot of Hezbollah commanders were killed in this strike. That's one thing that's for certain, as this bunker largely is Hezbollah's version of the Pentagon, where they operate and control a lot of their armed forces whenever they move into the headquarters. So we do know that a large amount of Hezbollah's commanders were killed, meaning that this was, by all purposes, a decapitation strike conducted by the Israeli Defense Forces. But we do not really know if Nasrallah was inside the bunker and if he is dead or not. We are largely certain he was in the bunker. We're not really certain if he's dead or not. Still leaning more towards dead than anything. But still...
So one thing that's interesting as well is right now, I think it was like some Middle Eastern news outlet, I can't remember if it was Al Arabia or what, they had published an article, or one of those outlets had published an article saying that Nasrallah was safe, he was okay, and that was according to sources within Hezbollah. But from what I've seen, it looks like those articles have been taken down. And also, it's pretty like standard operating procedure for Hezbollah, if the people are still living, to come out very quickly and say, no, they're perfectly fine and they're all right. But we've not gotten any official speech or statement from Hezbollah themselves saying that Nasrallah is alive. And it's been a long time since that strike has happened, and even Iranian sources are worried about Hezbollah's lack of saying whether or not he's living or not. So it has everybody very concerned, and it could be maybe the waiting period. They're trying to figure out what to do to respond to the death of Nasrallah. Perhaps Hezbollah is trying to find a new command structure to go to Iran and then ask for more support, so that way they can try to mount some response toward Israel. But I would imagine if Nasrallah has been taken out and also the headquarters have been destroyed, which we saw on the video, they're scrambling for leadership right now. They don't have anybody leading the thing, and that's going to be their biggest issue, is trying to assemble the troops without a proper chain of command.
And that is entirely true, but to summarize everything that Matthew said, we are largely assuming that Nasrallah has been punched in his snozrallah. We are going to be waiting to make sure to confirm that here very soon, but he ought to be dead. We're assuming that he is dead along with a lot of the Hezbollah command. And that also does lead exactly into what Matthew was saying. That mostly means, from what we can understand and what we can extrapolate out of the information that we have at the moment, that all Hezbollah command, or at least military command, or defense command, as they would want to call it, has been pretty much wiped out at this moment, meaning that the actual field command really has, well, not the field command, but the actual field units inside of southern Lebanon are really not getting any unified messages from central command that would be inside of Beirut. And this is a very big thing, especially if a war is going to be moving on into a conventional phase here very soon, where the Israelis actually start to move across the border, which we're expecting here in a moment. This will be a very big deal. A centralized or a unified chain of command is incredibly important in disseminating information and communicating with armed forces that are fighting on the field, and also giving an idea to superior officers what is actually happening, so that way they can get the right ideas, the right information, and make the right decisions when they need to. Information and communication are some of the most important aspects of being able to keep a cohesive and efficient fighting force on the battlefield. The fact that we've heard that most Hezbollah commanders were just killed will most likely be putting a pretty big problem, or a pretty big obstacle, into Hezbollah's command structure. Because while they do still have their intact fighting forces, from what we understand, inside of southern Lebanon, near to Tyre, or any areas like that, or Nabateh, we understand that they are not going to be getting any messages from a unified command structure up the chain. They may be getting sporadic fragments or fractals from different parts of a somewhat cohesive command structure, but it's not going to be unified messaging, making sure that all of these units are fighting on the same page. So from what we largely understand, the Hezbollah command structure looks something like this in practice if Israel is to invade here very soon. All of these forces are largely detached from each other, and the best that they can do is communicate horizontally instead of vertically to each other, and pray that that works, meaning that company commanders in the field will be sending messages to other company commanders nearby, trying to assess the situation, and then somehow, some way, come up with some sort of a coherent defensive plan to be able to stop the Israelis from advancing inwards. Beyond that, most fighting and most resistance to the Israelis at this point in this time window is going to be incredibly sporadic, because there is no unified command structure at this point, and one of Hezbollah's top guys, Nasrallah, probably was killed just a little while ago in the airstrike that happened in Beirut. But that was not the only airstrike that happened. There has been an endless slew of airstrikes being conducted by the Israeli Air Force today, but before we talk about those a little bit more, it is important to point out what the Israelis did say about the strike and some things that happened right after Nasrallah was killed. We were able to get a statement that the F-35I Adir was in fact used in the strike, which is a very interesting fact. We have seen that the F-35Is have been used before in the past year, but it's been very rare, actually. Usually the F-35I Adir has been held in an air defense role over the state of Israel, and has never been conducting air strikes inside of a foreign country like Lebanon, and the instances that it has been very slim. The F-35I Adir is one of the most modern and advanced aircraft that the Israeli Air Force has at its disposal, while I have a terrible stammer. This aircraft is the most advanced, and is actually one of the few F-35 variants in the world that were allowed to be modified post-sale by a foreign country. Israel is really the only country in the world that has been able to modify theirs after it's been delivered to them. The F-35I Adir does have a decent amount of air-to-ground and air-to-air capabilities that make it a very striking example of what a multi-role fighter can look like in the 5th generation, or the 5th age of aircraft being produced here in the modern world. This aircraft's use in this specific strike is most likely supposed to be sending a message to Iran and also Hezbollah at the exact same time that Israel is going to be using their most advanced tech and equipment to make it pretty much impossible for the Hezbollah or Iranian forces to actually put any sort of damage forward onto the Israelis in this upcoming conflict. The F-35I Adir's usage beyond that point wouldn't really make much sense, to be entirely honest. It has to be some sort of a message that the Israelis are sending, because the Israelis could have easily used some sort of a Baz Mejapar, which is their version of an F-15, to be able to conduct these strikes, and it would have pretty much resulted in the exact same kind of damage and the exact same kind of impact. So once again, a very interesting thing that the Israelis did use the F-35I Adir instead of any other aircraft available in their arsenal, which is a pretty expansive one for such a smaller country. But nevertheless, after this strike occurred, we did get a couple of interesting details outside the United States telling us a little bit more about what was going on. And specifically out of New York, we were able to see that apparently Netanyahu was taking a picture when the strike happened, or they took a picture of him when the strike was occurring, apparently ordering it to be done. We don't know if this is the actual picture from the moment of. We can see that a lot of things on the desk were blurred out. Not really sure if this is an actual picture of him ordering the strike on Nasrallah, but once again, a very interesting picture to see, and may have been possibly from the moment leading up to the strike. We have also been able to see that in another little bit of news, Netanyahu has already packed up and is returning to Israel at this very moment. This is considered an incredibly unusual move, as Israeli officials really don't move around much or conduct a lot of activities during the Shabbat, and not only that, it is incredibly weird to see him cut the trip short and then return right back to Israel practically immediately as soon as the strike happened. And this is once again leading into Matthew's statement that he made earlier in the news cycle, saying that the only reason that Netanyahu actually came to America on a visit was to goad the Hezbollah commanders into a sense of false security and then obliterate them once they moved into that bunker inside of Beirut. So it appears that that plan worked 100% to perfection. And not only that, we were able to hear a very interesting statement from the US government as well about how the strike was conducted and our involvement in the strike. We had no involvement at all, according to the U.S. government and officials that were able to speak on the matter. According to what we've heard from Sabrina Singh, who's the Deputy Pentagon Press Secretary, the United States had no involvement in this operation and did not have advanced warning. Technically, we did.
Also, Enforcer, there is actually more to the story than right here what we're seeing in this article. According to Israeli sources, they're saying that they actually were on the phone with the American defense group and secretary and things like that, talking to them while the attack was going on, literally giving them no time whatsoever to give any objection to the attack on the Hezbollah bunker. And that was probably honestly the smartest thing to do, is I think without getting on the phone right as it was happening, the U.S. probably would have started threatening Israel. That's probably why they did that, by getting on the phone very late. But yeah, they actually did get some warning, but it was only like a minute or two before the attack actually started.
Man, I was just about to say that, man. Like, we got the call, and it was literally as the bomb was falling, most likely. As the bombs were falling towards the target, from what we know, Yoav Gallant called up Secretary Lloyd Austin of the Department of Defense and stated to him, by the way, we're going to be bombing their bunker in Beirut and killing Nasrallah. And so there was no time for us to actually make an objection or even know much about this. We were told of it as it was happening, which was, of course, in our opinion, a fairly smart move, as the United States most likely would have made incredibly heavy objections, possibly threatened the Israelis with retaliation from the United States for going against our wishes in the region. But nevertheless, the Israelis did conduct the airstrike without American consent. They did tell him literally as the bomb was falling, and we can now see that the Israelis are going all in on fighting the Hezbollah forces inside of Lebanon, as airstrikes have rained throughout the entirety of the country for the rest of the day. We were able to see IDF airstrikes spanning all the way from the city of Tyre right along the coast. We can see that right here.
يا ويلي هربوا هربوا روحوا ايوه هذا الغراض هاي الغراض
And all the way up to the city of Beirut, not targeting Nasrallah's command headquarters that he's most likely dead in, but targeting other areas of the city that may be housing strategic Hezbollah assets that could be used against the Israelis in an upcoming ground invasion. Here's one of the clips of the airstrikes in Beirut.
الله أكبر الله أكبر يلا واحد تاني وطوا
And another one.
يلا بعد واحد
يعني قبل يفوت يلا جوا ولا حيوانات انت فعلا
And moving on.
I'll never understand why people shout that in the middle of like explosions and stuff. It's like, praise the Lord, praise the Lord. It's like, no, there's like stuff getting blown up in the distance and it's pretty close to you, actually. I would probably go find shelter.
Man, imagine the southern version of that, man. Like, you see a bomb like fall into downtown Birmingham, you just hear a whole bunch of people going, oh, Lord! You know, it's like, that would be so weird. Like, that would be the weirdest thing ever. But nevertheless, it's just common over there. I have no idea why. But anyways, moving on from that, we did get to see more airstrikes occurring in Beirut as well.
يا عالم يا عالم خربت الدنيا يا عالم المخلية العملية ما تخافوا بابا ما تخافوا خربت الدنيا يا عالم ما تخافوا ما تخافوا يا عالم خربت الدنيا.
Interestingly enough, this
I'm
guy
glad
kept
that
on...
this fine gentleman is calm during this whole incident right here. It's always good to be calm during things like this. He's a perfect example.
Man, and you know something interesting? He kept on saying Alam, like not Allah, but Alam. And I would have to say that I believe that the bread inspector should look into this guy, as Alam was usually a illegal additive to bread used to adulterate it and increase its size or at least its density during the 19th century. I believe this man may be adulterating the bread, and some people should go by and inspect his bread in his bakery just to make sure that he's not actually putting alum in it, because this guy was really screaming that. I think he may have lost his alum shipment across the street. But moving on from
Also,
that,
by the way, I'm seeing a lot of people in the live chat asking throughout the whole night, why was the smoke orange from that explosion? Because that's kind of weird.
I don't really know why. It's not. We don't know of any kind of a nitric acid storage that was over here that would make an orange smoke like that. It could be from literally anything. We're not entirely sure. It may have actually just been the debris and the dust of the destroyed building may have ended up being orange of a sort. But we really don't know why, to be entirely honest.
Yeah, I'm seeing some people say maybe it was the dirt that colored it orange like that. I don't know. I mean, maybe it was the dirt. I really don't know. But the bombs used were some type of bunker busters because there was actual pictures showing where they entered the bunker itself and blew it up from the interior. So they were definitely huge bombs. But I don't know why it would be orange, really. Oh, but let's see. Miss Deesa said bricks are orange. I'm not sure if there was any bricks down there, though, but it could have been.
Man, well, I can tell you something, man. The Israelis were flinging bricks at Hezbollah today across all of Lebanon. It was a very interesting sight to see. And we also got to see down in Dania, near to the area where the command bunker was, airstrikes were still falling during the middle of the night. Quite significant ones, as a matter of fact. Let me insert the southern response to these explosions. Damn it, get the camera. They're blowing stuff up. Get it. Man.
Also, they're still hitting Beirut right now. Like I'm seeing another wave happening right now as we're speaking. So they're just hitting them literally time and time again. I think they're taking advantage of the fact that Hezbollah really has no leadership right now, and they're knowing now is the opportune time to go in there and take them out if they can find the ball and hit them, because they're hitting them wave after wave right now. And also, let's see here. Looks like Israeli warships are now participating in the bombardment as well, so they're getting the whole shebang on this one.
They really are getting the whole shebang, and we also got to see that while Israel is hammering the entirety of Lebanon at the moment, Hezbollah is trying to fire back, but we can see that the Iron Dome is largely intercepting all incoming rockets and destroying them over the area of Nadia in northern Israel in the Upper Galilee region. Quite a large amount of interceptions going on up there.
Whoa.
And that's the end of that clip, but still showing that there is a few interceptions going on in the area. And when I mean a few, it's really a lot. But still moving on from that, we were able to hear that the Israeli Defense Forces have started to issue evacuation orders for large swaths of Lebanon. We are most likely assuming that a lot of these evacuation areas are in southern Lebanon, as the Israeli armed forces will most likely be moving across the border here very soon and beginning the full-on conflict. We will be trying to cover that live when it happens. We don't know when that will be, but if it's while we're awake at any point in the day, we will be covering that as soon as it's happening. So it's going to be a pretty bizarre thing to see, considering that Israeli forces will finally be moving into Lebanon at this point, and we will be hoping that their actions are swift and bring about a great deal of success in destroying Hezbollah, hopefully for a considerable time. But moving on out of Lebanon, there is a really big deal that's kind of brewing in the background, and we really don't know what direction it's going at the moment. It's kind of up in the air. Iran, or at least Iranian sources, are calling for Iran to declare a war against Israel in support of Hezbollah forces inside of southern Lebanon. And according to our own information, Iranian back channels are calling for all-out war on Israel following the massive strike on Hezbollah's headquarters. A very interesting thing, to say the least, and it looks as though the Iranians may or may not get involved at this point, depending on how badly Hezbollah forces end up getting smacked around in the Nasrallah. But a lot of people seem to be saying that Israel launched a strike destroying Hezbollah's headquarters with leadership with the leader of Nasrallah inside. And a lot of people are throwing in their thoughts about what may be coming around the corner with Iranian involvement. And some people are saying that Iran will remain uninvolved. Some people are saying that they will certainly step in. Some are saying that it's a toss-up, and others are unsure and undecided. But Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so the big question that we always have to ask when we see the proxy forces start acting up like Hezbollah has been doing, we have to ask, is Iran, which is the main funder of these organizations, are they actually going to step in themselves and get directly involved in this conflict and try to go to war with Israel? Because that would be the biggest threat at the moment if they were to decide to do that. So about 39% said Iran will stay uninvolved, at least in a direct capacity, while 29% said Iran will certainly step in, and 24% said it's really a toss-up and it's a 50-50 chance. And on this one, I gotta say, remember, we have a lot of U.S. assets in the region right now. We have fighter jets over there, we have aircraft carriers, we have entire carrier strike groups over there, including various vessels. So we are over there showing our presence, our military presence, very strongly right now. So Iran's been very weary about that because they've been seeing it and they've been getting very intimidated by it. And that has prevented them from really acting as bad as they could act at the moment. So I personally am with the 24%. I think it's a toss-up. They might get involved, but remember though, Nasrallah, if he isn't confirmed dead and he is indeed out of the picture, that could cause Iran to get so riled up that maybe they decide to do the irrational and jump in. That could be a possibility, but I'm leaning toward the side they probably won't. But it's a 50-50 chance. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that it is a 20, I would have to go with the 25% that it probably is a 50-50 chance that they may or may not get involved. It's really hard to tell at the moment because, of course, Iran would most likely want to get involved. Israel has already largely destroyed Hamas's fighting abilities for at least the next decade, and now they're probably about to go do the same thing to Hezbollah, once again drawing out Iranian ambitions in the area for another decade of trying to once again wipe out any pro-Western interests or pro-Western nations within this region, and once again making things incredibly difficult for them. When a situation like this arises, we most likely expect that Iran would probably get involved, but at the same time, there is a heavy presence of U.S. forces in the area, and not only that, the Israelis, compared to the last time they fought Iran, have a unbelievable technological and fighting advantage over the Islamic Republic of Iran. That is something that they already had back in 2006, the last time that this was conducted inside of Lebanon, but they have that far more considerably at this point. Iran's military abilities and technological abilities have largely stagnated since the 1980s, and so that means that as time has gone on, the massive difference in between Israeli military capabilities and Iranian military capabilities has skyrocketed. The Israelis are far ahead of the Iranians at this point, and if the Israelis really want to dedicate a lot of attention towards decapitating the Iranian government or decapitating Iranian nuclear or military abilities, they probably could do that with a great deal of success. So we kind of are thinking, based off of the pros and the cons that Iran is most likely weighing at this point, that it's probably a 50-50 chance that they may or may not get involved. We'll largely have to wait and see over the next few days, which they really do. And here's how the hypotheticals will go from this point. If the Iranians do get involved, they will most likely get involved like they did in April, launching a large drone and missile strike. They will probably keep up these kinds of strikes along with supporting Hezbollah through the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps in a hope that they may eventually be able to wear down the amount of Israeli interceptors available and start to hit actual considerable targets inside of Israel, or at least terrorize the civilian population, one or the other. The other alternative is that Iran will not join the war, and while they may still continue to support the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, and then they will further support Hezbollah forces inside of Lebanon, the Hezbollah forces, due to the severed command structure that they now have, will most likely be posing very badly against the Israeli armed forces, and will probably be ground down to pretty much nothing by the end of the conflict, and then they will have to be built once again from the ground up over the next 10 or 20 years or so before they're actually at any kind of a fighting competence again. That is really the two ways that we see this going, but once again, we'll have to kind of give it some time here on this channel to really be able to tell where it's going and what actually will be happening. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least on my side of the analysis, because once again, we don't know exactly what's going to happen, but we have a pretty good idea based off of the hypotheticals what will most likely be happening here in the near future. But with that, we are now going to be moving on from the Middle East, interestingly enough, and we're actually going to be moving on into Europe, because while the Middle Eastern news is huge, we have an insanely high amount of news coming out of Ukraine, and specifically Eastern Europe as a whole, because we actually got to hear of some really big strikes happening inside of Russia today as well. And moving us on up into the Netherlands, to give y'all a complete double whammy right there, because I just told y'all we were going over into Eastern Europe, and now we're going all the way into Western Europe. We were able to see the final flight of some Dutch F-16s before they're going to be transferred to Ukraine. It was a really cool video. Once again, these are the F-16As that have been modified with computer technologies that are comparable to an F-16C or a D, and we could see these flying right here. Sound was inserted post, by the way.
I was about to say, that's pretty good. They got the audio from the flight.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I like that paint scheme on that tail section on that one.
Yeah, that's a really cool one right there, actually. But soon, these F-16s will actually be making their little voyage over to Ukraine, to where they will be used in the Ukrainian Air Force from this point forward, bringing the amount of Ukrainian F-16s operational from 6 to 10, now giving them about 2 entire squadrons worth of F-16s and 2 additional F-16s to pull out, just in case there's any attrition, such as an F-16 breaking down or something else along those lines. A very interesting thing to see, and hopefully these F-16s will once again be helping out massively in the air defense role, and also helping out with Ukraine's air-to-ground strike capabilities, considering that they now will be getting the joint standoff weapon, or pretty much the mega glide bomb that the United States will be providing for the F-16s to use. Moving on from that news and on over into Ukraine itself, we also have a lot of news coming out of Ukraine. Not really massive news for the most part. Mostly frontline analysis today is the name of the game through most areas, but we did get to see something wildly interesting happening near the city of Tambov. Tambov has only been brought up a few times on this channel. It's not an incredibly major city, but it is the seat of administration within the Tambov Oblast, but it's never really been one of really a city of note ever. But Tambov is a fairly interesting city. It sounds a little bit like Tambourine in my mind, and it also has some of the wackiest Soviet era architecture that you could ever really find. And let me see if I can show y'all a couple of the examples.
And they just built a pool out here in the middle too that people just get in. Is that like a real pool, or is that like a reflecting thing or something?
This is a legit pool, no lie.
It's like a public pool for like anybody to use.
I guess. I don't really know. It's a weird thing. I think it's a Soviet thing, but it's like a part of one of their water parks or whatnot. There you have a couple of these throughout Russia in the former Soviet Union, actually.
That's pretty cool, actually. Like, we don't have a public pool in Alabama. We don't have public parks hardly either. We don't have public much of anything. So it's very interesting to see.
Man, really, we don't have like nothing at all. I mean, that's actually kind of neat. But I'm trying to find y'all the modern Soviet.
Man, the way you said that was so depressing. We don't really have nothing at all. It's true, actually. Alabama really doesn't have much.
Man, Alabama just doesn't have much in the way of anything. But here are some of the Soviet commie blocks that exist from Soviet times. I'm wanting to find y'all one of the more unique examples, but no one's really. Here we go. This weird building. This is actually one of the administrative buildings for the Tambov Oblast. It looks almost like the Palestine Republic, but on a budget. And it was a really, really wonky building. I've actually seen a couple of the buildings from the Soviet times in pictures from Tambov, and they've always been pretty whack. But it seems like a lot of people like to take pictures of the 19th century buildings that were built during the imperial times. But beyond that, Tambov is an interesting city. There isn't really a large amount of military targets that we know of around the surrounding area. There may be a few, like for example, the small barracks facility that we see out here, and also further north, maybe this barracks facility as well, because they are cordoned off with a security perimeter, meaning that this is most likely a Russian military base, but I don't actually know of any off the top of my head that would be a target for the Ukrainians to strike. But nevertheless, we did see that there were large fires surrounding the entirety of the city of Tambov off in the distance, showing that the Ukrainians did conduct a deep strike today on something, but we don't really know exactly what. But we did get a couple of pictures here on the firm's footage showing us where that strike is, and we also saw some sort of a trench work here near Tambov that is most likely serving as some sort of a training ground. This means the Ukraine may have stricken and destroyed a training ground deep inside of Russia, but the reason for doing so when they usually don't go after training grounds is completely unknown. We have no idea why they would have gone out of their way to single out this one and destroy it, but nevertheless, it is very interesting to see that they did conduct a strike on Tambov and apparently hit their target. But moving on from that, and on down into Kursk, we only got one clip out of Kursk today, and unfortunately, it was a Ukrainian striker getting hit within the region. We can see the striker right here. In a second, it's about to get slammed. And we can see the Russian drone come down. It hit it largely on the turret above the striker. We don't think anyone was in the turret at the time, so shrapnel may have wounded some. We don't believe anyone was probably killed from this explosion, but it was largely a glancing blow to the striker. The striker is still probably operational based off of where that drone hit on the vehicle, but the turret has been knocked down on top of the striker, meaning that the 50 cal is most likely not operational any longer, and also the turret basket and its gearing has most likely been destroyed as well. Beyond that, from what we understand, the Ukrainian offensive in the Kursk Oblast is still going quite well, and we are expecting that the Ukrainians will still be making further progress south of the Reka Sim, near to the area of Glushkovo. It's only a matter of time at this point until they secure that flank. We don't really know when it will be, but we're still expecting that it's going to be within 1 month's time. Moving on from the Kursk Oblast and on into Ukraine itself, we actually have a whole bunch of interesting footage and interesting news to cover down here. But before we get into that, though, I do want to make sure that we take a couple of questions, because there have been a couple of interesting ones tonight. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so jumping into our first super chat of the night. This one's going to go to Khan, who's a channel legend. Thank you very much, Khan, for that $50 support. He said, hey guys, I was in Iraq and Afghanistan for a decade, from 2004 to 2014. And also, thank you for your service, by the way. He said, the long-range JSOW glide bombs that we're going to send to Ukraine can easily make eastern Ukraine look like Gaza. And what do you think?
And I completely agree with that, Con. One thing that I would have to say, though, is that a lot of people really hype this thing a lot, more so than it really was supposed to be, because the United States Department of Defense and a lot of people online stated that this thing was a cruise missile. But I believe that you and me, Con, know that this thing is a glide bomb, 100%. And that's something that I didn't really like, is that people were misrepresenting this thing the other day. And of course, once again, I gotta say this, it just shows to me how many people don't do their homework, because I know exactly why everyone called it a cruise missile. The Department of Defense called it that, and that was a complete misprint for the large part, or a typo. And then everyone on the internet didn't even think to question it or go, that doesn't look like a missile, that looks like a glide bomb. And then everyone went with calling it a cruise missile, really showing how little effort people put into that. Because once I heard it from Matthew, because he also called it a cruise missile because he read that, I said, I don't think that's a cruise missile. That sounds like a glide bomb to me, because I don't think there's any AGMs that are an actual cruise missile. Now, I know some people are going to be like, well, what about the AGM-65s? And the AGM-65s aren't really a cruise missile. It's more of an air-to-ground missile. These things don't cruise. They more so just kind of give themselves a little bit of a subsonic boost to their target. So these aren't really cruise missiles. Yes, they do have a motor. And yes, they do fly like a missile, and they kind of are a missile, but it is not a cruise missile. A cruise missile is a missile that gets up to a cruising speed and flies hundreds, if not thousands, of miles to its target. And from what I understand, I don't really think there are any AGM weapon systems that are cruise missiles. Now, I may be wrong on that, and let me make sure to go and check that. And so let me go over here, and let me go right here. Yeah, so the Tomahawks are actually classified as BGMs, not AGMs. And I believe, let's see. Let me see if I can get what BGM and AGM stand for. Let's see here. So interestingly enough, there actually is one Tomahawk that is an AGM 109. So that may be throwing my theory out of the window that all the AGMs are not cruise missiles. Some of them actually are, but apparently, according to this, it's a medium range air-to-surface missile with a shorter range, a turbojet-powered air-launched cruise missile with cluster munitions, and they cost about $500,000 apiece. So once again, it is an air-launched weapon with shorter range than a normal Tomahawk, and therefore it gets the classification of AGM. So once again, I don't know why everyone went with the idea that this thing was a cruise missile. That's just factually incorrect. And also, it doesn't even, it's not even a missile. It doesn't even have a motor. It's a bomb that glides like any other normal glide bomb that we've seen. But beyond that, this thing really does have the ability to make most of eastern Ukraine look something along the lines of Gaza. These things are pinpoint accurate and do have a decent amount of explosive mass. And let's see if we can actually get the warhead here. So they actually have a combined effects bomblet. or bomblets, which are pretty much a cluster bomb of a sort. They also have a sensor-fused weapon. Apparently, there was an upgrade that's been canceled, and a multi-stage warhead called the Brooch. But we actually want the explosive mass on these things, and so let me see if I can find that really quickly. And let's see here. Combat history, general characteristics. Sadly, we actually don't get a warhead size on these things, but considering that the bomb does weigh about 1,065 to 1,095 pounds in its entirety, I would assume that the warhead is most likely around 500 or 750 pounds in size. Not as big as the Israeli bombs that are actually being dropped around Gaza. Those are usually around 2,000 pounds in size, but these things are still pinpoint accurate and fairly sizable in explosive yield. They're comparable to an ATACMS missile with a unitary warhead. So going off of that, these things are going to be putting a great deal of damage onto the Russians wherever they may be used. And if I was a Ukrainian commander, if I was the general, the commander-in-chief of the Ukrainian armed forces, I would probably be using these bombs around the area of Pokrovsk. I wouldn't be using them in the Kursk offensive because the Kursk offensive largely doesn't need that much support. The Pokrovsk area is still fairly difficult. And while the Ukrainians are holding the Russians back in this area, it would be better to have a great deal of certainty and know that the Russians are being held back in this area, and that their combat abilities are pretty much being destroyed at where they lie at the moment and completely wiped out. The JSOW, the Joint Standoff Weapon, would make that very easy to do. The F-16s could drop them inside of friendly territory, they could glide towards the Russian positions, slam onto them, and then destroy them. A lot like the Russian Air Force has been doing against Ukrainian forces that are in Pokrovsk as well. This would level the playing field and stabilize the situation in Pokrovsk, where hopefully some Ukrainian units could be peeled out of this area and then slapped down in other ones where those forces could be needed. Like, for example, the Kursk offensive, where additional forces could probably be allocated, and then we would see a little bit more success on the western flank near to Glishkovo. That probably would be a fairly smart move to make with these bombs, and in that instance, these things would be making the Pokrovsk battlefield look like Gaza. These things would be hitting literally anywhere and everywhere, wiping out a pretty decent amount of Russian forces with each strike or at least valuable equipment, and making sure that the Russians are cursing the days that they ever stepped foot out of Avdiivka and started moving towards Pokrovsk instead. And so with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well, Khan, and thank you so much once again for the massive support and helping this channel to keep on running. Terribly sorry if I'm stammering a lot. A lot of blood pressure going on tonight, to be entirely honest, because of things behind the scenes. But I still thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible each and every single day. It's folks like you who have been supporting this channel for 3 years nearly that have made this thing possible. We have not run a single stream with an ad or a sponsor, and it's thanks to folks like you. We've been able to do this as a job, we've been able to say what we want to say, and not only that, y'all have been able to hear what y'all have wanted to hear in the exact same way every single day. If it wasn't for all of y'all and y'all's massive support, and especially you tonight, Con, and a huge thanks for throwing in another 50, we'll be getting to that one probably here in a second, we wouldn't have been able to make this thing a reality for so many people. Right now at this point, 36,000 people have watched this stream just in the first 54 minutes. And if it wasn't, once again, for folks like UConn, those 36,000 people wouldn't have had a stream to watch at all tonight, much less one that has been able to run for 3 years at this point. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here is going to go to Khan, who puts in that another $50 donation. And huge shout to you, Khan, like the Enforcer said, for that second support of the night. Massive support and long-lasting support. He said, thank you. And yes, they are the same as the 2,000-pound bombs that the Israelis are using.
And thank you so much for the support, Khan, and very interesting to hear, because that would be a fairly good thing to know, at least with the accuracy side of things. These things will be putting a great deal of damage out on the Russian forces wherever they may be, and if they use them a little bit behind the lines, they may be able to hit some pretty strategically viable targets like air defense systems, if they exist, communications hubs, supply lines, things like that. And I gotta say, thank you so much once again for support, the second massive support of the night, and helping this channel to keep on running, because like we say, if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't have been able to make this thing possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep making it possible each and every day if it wasn't for folks like you. And so a massive thanks to you once again. And also, I've seen some people bringing this up. We haven't really brought this up a lot tonight, but this is a really proud point of the channel. We reached 275,000 subscribers today. A nice round number. And everyone loves a nice round number. Don't they, Matthew? I think everyone does.
Man, I love a nice round number. I did a big old hey a minute ago, but the mic's not picking me up tonight. I don't know what's going on with that. I said something earlier, and the mic didn't get me either. But yeah, I'm very happy about the 275. That's a milestone in itself.
Man, and I gotta say, it's a wonderful thing to know that people keep on coming to the channel and that people keep on enjoying it. That's incredibly cool. We would also like to give a huge shout out and a thanks to the Hot Dog Man for giving us a plug. Apparently that actually helped us out because we've seen a lot of people in the comment section tonight saying that they came from the Hot Dog Man. So a big thanks for the free advertising there. That was incredibly kind of him. Once again, the actual name of that channel will never be mentioned, but we still thank him greatly for that. That's always a massive help, and we're always happy to know that people do enjoy our content and want more folks to hear the news from this channel and not from a pretty lackluster channel like the Hot Dog Man's. But beyond that, I gotta thank you so much once again, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible, Con. And so with that, huge thanks to you once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the last question of this segment, and then we're going to be getting on into the rest of the news that we have for tonight.
All right, and this one's going to go to Evan Berger, who puts in a $50 donation as well. And thank you very much, Evan, for that very generous support also. He said, thank you for keeping me updated in the war. And 2 questions. How many more months and years of fighting can both the Russians and Ukrainians sustain at this rate? And also, what does LSA mean and how'd that start?
A good question, Evan Berger. Very good questions right there. I'll actually start with the last one and then move up to the next one, since the last one is a little bit easier to answer than the first one. So the LSA stands for Lee Spring Army, and a lot of people may have heard about that in the Ukraine war sphere. Of course, it's heavily focalized here in this channel. People are putting LSA in the chat literally all the time, and it's a huge thing for this channel. The LSA's name started all from a channel joke, because way back in the day, there was a Pantsir S-1 missile system that was burning in a field near Chernihiv way at the beginning of the war, and I stupidly said, and it was the worst misinformation that I've ever put out, that Lee Spring suspension systems are obsolete and haven't been used in decades. Lee Spring suspensions are some of the most common forms of suspension systems and are used quite heavily in the modern day. So that was a complete misstatement that I made right there, and I got grilled for it. Like, I literally got grilled by everyone who was watching that show that night. And so we didn't really know what to do about that. Like, that was something else, and it literally did not stop. Like, we got on the stream the next day and people were still talking about the whole Lee Spring thing. It was endless. Like, every other chat was about that. And at the time, to speak a little bit about like the lore of this channel, we actually had a Discord server. We don't have a Discord server anymore. We haven't for, I believe, a couple of years at this point. But we had a Discord server, and at the time, there was this thing that was building up called the Great Schism, which is where the moderators that I had on Discord got really power hungry because they were trying to tell me how to run the channel, and I was trying to tell them, like, look, I'm working on this full time, this is my channel, y'all aren't here to tell me how to run it, y'all are just here to help me run it, so what in the world are y'all doing? But leading up to that, this was the time that they started to try and tell me how to do literally anything and everything, and then acted like I was an idiot or I had met their disapproval and there was going to be consequences if I just went, look, I'm going to go do my own thing. And this was one of them. The moderators leading up to the Great Schism absolutely hated the whole thing that happened. And were like, don't mention it. Don't talk about it. Just shoot down anyone who's bringing it up. And then Matthew and me, because Matthew had just become my co-host at that point, because the other guy flaked out on me who was here before that, Matthew was like, hey, we ought to just lean into this thing and make it a joke like it is, because it's actually kind of funny how people are really like just clinging on to this thing. So we came onto the stream, we started joking about it, and people were just eating it up. People loved it. And so then I was like, dang, y'all are like a group of people who are really into Lee Springs. And someone in the live chat said, it's like a Lee Spring army. And then at that point, it hit, and I was like, that's it. That's what we're doing. It's the Lee Spring Army from this point forward. And so that's where the Lee Spring Army generally came to be, at least with its name. But as far as the Lee Spring Army exists, it's not just a joke in the name, it's more so actually gotten a lot of form and cohesion as time has moved on. The Lee Spring Army is not a political organization in the sense that it picks one side or the other. That's something that the Lee Spring Army will never do. We never pick a side in domestic politics. That is for other people. The Lee Spring Army is entirely focused on supporting and promoting Western and American interests around the entirety of the world and supporting anything that may benefit the collective West or the United States specifically in any kind of an action. That means that the Lee Spring Army supports the Ukrainian nation in their fight, largely because that's within Western interest due to what we will be getting out of that if the Ukrainians win. Inside the Middle East, we support the Israelis because, once again, the Israelis are more Western aligned, obviously, than the Iranian-backed proxies that hate the United States and not only want Israel dead, they want us dead as well. So we support Israel in that area. In East Asia, we support South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, the Philippines, Vietnam, interesting enough, Australia, and New Zealand in their actions against the People's Republic of China, as that is within Western interest to continue to support those kinds of actions. And we also support actions that continue to make sure that the United States and the Western world as a whole is not to be reckoned with. We like to believe that the United States should no longer continue on a foreign policy campaign of different forms of appeasement, whether it be from one side or the other. We largely believe in the United States viewing each situation on a case-to-case basis and maybe conceding in instances where it doesn't really matter, but standing firm and holding our ground in situations where it really does matter. These are the kinds of things that the LSA has ended up standing for as time has passed, and we've really been able to make a very cohesive kind of an image and a message that the LSA in this channel is really supposed to be spreading. Luckily, I gotta say this, luckily we did not get attached to another community that ended up kind of springing up out of the Ukraine war, because that would have really conflicted with our channel, to say the least, because that one has ended up becoming incredibly political. It may as well be a pseudo-political organization at this point, so it's really lucky that we ended up creating our own, so that way the community could be tailored around the channel instead of the channel really having to tailor itself around the community and whatever that one's doing or wherever it's heading. So we're really lucky that it did end up that way. But with that, I hope that answers that question well. And moving on to your next one, Evan, how many more months or years of fighting can Russia and Ukraine sustain at this rate? It actually could be a good while longer, and it does seem that a lot of people are starting to see that, and we're starting to have to change our analysis here on this channel to include that as an idea as well. It most likely will be going on for a considerably longer time, much longer than we were even anticipating. I would say that at this rate, it certainly can go on for another half year, maybe even another year quite easily, but beyond that, we start getting into the realm of crystal balling, and crystal balling is always really tough to do because it's almost always wrong. Much like my analysis that Russia would collapse by the end of this year or the beginning of next year, that was an attempt at crystal balling, and it of course was wrong. We largely knew that, but we had to give some kind of a time frame to be able to put out there somehow, some way, but it was going to end up being incorrect because no one really knows when the end of a war comes. It's kind of like playing roulette. The little spinning ball in the roulette machine can end up landing in pretty much any slot. And that's kind of how wars end. The war could end at any time, or it could keep going for any amount of time. We don't really know, and it relies on so many different independent variables that it's really hard to even get an idea or measure when this war could actually end. As far as the Russians are concerned with manpower, they could keep going for an incredibly long time, and as far as Ukraine is concerned with firepower, they could keep on going for an incredibly long time. So we don't really know when this thing could end up rounding out, but we still assume that it has a bit of a while to it, and we'll be waiting for that while to finally wind on down and finally close on out at some point in the future. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, Evan Berger, or at least give an idea of when we think it can at least last, because while we can't say when it can end and how much longer they can definitively hold in, we do know for certain they probably both will be able to hang in for another 6 months to a year possibly and keep the war going for that much longer. But with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. A huge thanks to you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who have helped to make this thing possible and helped us keep this thing rolling. And also, Governor Ivey Final Forum said, y'all should start taking phone calls from the audience. Oh God, no.
Man. One bad word and we would be off of this thing.
Oh, man, have you ever seen C-SPAN and with their call-ins? Oh, my goodness. That if that happened here on YouTube, we would get banned. Like, some people come on and they'll just like start slinging out as many racial slurs as they can to just get us taken off air. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, people wouldn't do that. But then you got Hot Dog Man's people, which are just hell bent on trying to take this channel down any way they can. And if they had that opportunity, I would bet your bottom dollar they would go through every single step to get on that phone call, to get on air, and then do something like that so that we would get a community guideline strike, or we'd literally be deleted on the spot. I would love to do something like that, though. I think it would be really cool. But if we ever did a segment like that, it would largely have to be pre-recorded or something along those lines, because that would be really tough to do otherwise without assuring that something bad would not be said on air that we couldn't control. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. Good idea, though, but I have to explain why we could never do that, because, you know, while it's a great idea, there is certainly a massive, like, Russian roulette being played there every single time. But with that, we are going to be moving on out of this question segment and on into the next bit of news, the long-lasting news that we have outside of Ukraine today. And boy, howdy, is it nice and good. It's coming from our location unknowns, and we got a couple. We actually got to see a little bit of combat training of the 2nd Company of the 1st Mechanized Battalion of the 3rd Assault Brigade. Check this out. We're going to be muting that, but we can see them going through their little bits of training here. Look at them go.
I like the camo patterns they put on their AKs. That's pretty cool, too.
Man, I'm telling you what, man. It is nice to see.
A little Granada for training purposes only.
Man, and I see some people asking a very interesting question in the chat. Who is Hot Dog Man? I'll make it very short because I see a lot of people asking that question that are apparently new. I'll answer this very quickly. Hot Dog Man is a YouTuber that has been on a campaign, a harassment against us for about the entire time we've been on air. Interestingly enough, the guy keeps on saying the craziest, stupidest stuff, and he's weaponized his community to target and harass us for that entire time. We've had to end up filing police reports against that community because they tried to have us swatted at law school when we were going to law school. They've tried to, they haven't tried. They've actually doxed us a million times. Even over there on that YouTube channel, there's a thumbnail of our parents' house that we're living in at this point, running this show, that is over there on that channel. There is loads of things that they have done to absolutely harass us and try and either ruin our lives or have us harmed or killed. That person's name, their YouTube channel, will never be mentioned on this channel. It is one of the worst and most irreprehensible channels that has ever been seen. And the crazy thing is that because of that, we bring the guy up as a joke, calling him Hot Dog Man. And what's crazy is that he has done all of this to us, actual possible physical harm, and has actually weaponized his community and has brigaded us and doxed us for this entire time. And then he's over there complaining that we don't ever stop talking about him, and it's because the guy is a menace. And I'm not going to stop talking about him, and if he doesn't like it, he can quit YouTube. That's my honest opinion. But moving on from that and into our next bit of news, we did get to see a couple of Ukrainian transports on the move. And check this out. And we're going to be muting that. But we can see right here all of these BMPs moving on down the road. A really interesting clip to see because the BMPs are being transported with the crew inside of the APCs, but really interesting to know and great to see. But moving on from that little clip and on into our last little bit of location unknown news, we got to see the Russian casualty report. And it was a very good one.
Oh, yeah, I'm telling you what, that's juicy right there. That's a good number of Bobcats. A nice, good, round figure. I love to see it. But Enforcer, tell us more.
Man, and it is an incredibly interesting lost day. 1,370 Russian soldiers were wounded and killed over the past 24 hours, along with 48 APCs, 58 supply trucks, 21 main battle tanks, 58 artillery pieces, 85 drones, 2 anti-aircraft warfare systems, and 2 Bobcat skid steers. It has been a wildly good day. And also we have a correction from Mestisa that plus 9 cruise missiles are included in the total, but are not on the graphic. So there's actually 9 cruise missiles that were shot down that just weren't represented. A huge shout out to Mestisa for finding that and catching it. The AFU adjusts for the constant arrival of refined intelligence data. And a huge thanks once again for Miss Disa clarifying that, because they also did shoot down 9 cruise missiles on top of everything else that they destroyed today. An impressive day by all regards, and it does appear that the Ukrainians are still holding their defensives incredibly well and are inflicting a wildly high amount of losses onto the Russians. And we do know where a lot of those losses are coming from as we move over into the Vovchansk area, which is a very interesting one. We've been able to see that the Ukrainians have used a large amount of drone forces today to be able to strike and destroy Russian forces across this area. And we see our first Ukrainian drone just hovering through the trees, finding a little Russian dugout and then pouncing on it. Bam! And then going a second time. And
also, real quick, by the way, I don't mean to interrupt the footage here. Sorry to everybody who's trying to put in the super chat tonight that's having extreme difficulties. Just know that we do appreciate y'all going through the trouble of trying to put one in, like refreshing your browser and finding new browsers. For some reason, YouTube's been having a consistent issue with the super chat function for the last week or so. I've been getting emails from people left and right talking about they can't super chat. Andy just told me he couldn't, and somehow he was able to make it work. Also, Gunfox had a problem as well. So YouTube, I wish they would fix that. But just literally the way we make an income on this channel is through super chat. So whatever the glitch is starting to really screw with the channel big league. So I wish they would get that fixed. But thank you, Andy, for persevering, and Gunfox as well.
And I would have to thank both of y'all as well. We're really sorry for that. We wish we could fix something like that, but that is built and baked in really into YouTube's interface. So we really don't get a lot of control over that. But I thank everyone so much for still trying to go through the effort of supporting this channel and helping it to keep on running, because y'all are the folks who make this thing possible. But have no fear, we will still be on air, and I just got to thank y'all all for wanting to go through the effort of trying to support the channel, even if YouTube's making that very difficult, if not impossible, for some tonight. But with that, we're moving on to our next clip, where we also got to see the 2nd Battalion of the 3rd Assault Brigade conducting some actions in the Vovchansk area as well today. And we're going to be turning that heater down a little bit more because, ooh, it's getting hot down here. And we see them firing into the dugouts, making sure to clear them out of the Russians. We can see a Russian coming out and surrendering right here, actually.
He got smoked out. He said, I'm done. I'm just going to give up. That's probably smart.
Oh, and we can see this guy hosing him down. Dang, look at that. And with that, that's the end of the clip. But still, beautiful to see, and good to know that the 2nd Battalion of the 3rd Assault Brigade has been doing really good work in this area very recently. Moving on from that, we also get to see a group of Russians getting hit by a Ukrainian strike drone called Fury. Check this out. It's not like the movie Fury, because this thing blows up on the Russians. And here we go, right on the nail. Whop, and they got it.
This is the playa drone right here.
Man, playa. Also surprised it said heater. Yeah, actually, I have a heater and a fan in this room because just full disclaimer, there's really no air conditioning in my room. There's like one tiny vent, and it hardly puts out any heat or cooling. So this room is naturally kind of hot, and so I have to use a fan to cool it down, and then I have to use a heater to heat it up. Just in case y'all are wondering, why in the world are you hearing me talk about a heater? But anyways, moving on from that, and out of this little clip, we did get to hear another interesting thing today. Do you think that Ukraine has generally lost momentum inside mainland Russia in the Kursk region? Because we were talking about that area just a moment ago, and it seems as though a lot of people are talking about that at this moment. And a lot of people have really weighed in on this. Matthew, what are people thinking, and what are you thinking? Do you think that they've slowed down any, or they're keeping up their momentum?
All right, so the biggest thing that's happened in a long time was when Ukraine went into mainland Russia and invaded in Kursk. It started off very, very strong. They were making very rapid progress, but it looks like it has slowed down just a little bit. The fighting has increased as Russia has moved some reinforcements into the area. So are they keeping up momentum, or have they lost momentum? That's the question. And 45% said yes, Ukraine has been slowed down, while 28% said no, Ukraine is still pushing very hard, and 15% said I really need more intel. And on this one, I'm actually with the 45%. Ukraine has been slowed down quite a bit, actually, but they're still making progress. And also, another thing as well, the bigger point is Ukraine still is distracting the Russians from the front line inside of Ukrainian mainland. They are forcing them to redirect troops into mainland Russia to protect their territory. That's the big deal that's really putting a strain on Russia's forces. And really, that's honestly the most important thing, in my opinion. It would be nice if Ukraine could grab some more land, maybe for a land-for-land exchange, but I think the mere fact of distracting Russian forces is a bigger deal. But I'm with the 45%. And Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to agree that they largely have been slowed down, especially since the opening month of the offensive where they were making considerable ground. They're not really making a lot of ground anymore at this point. It's largely maintaining the ground they have and then trying to expand the western flank, which is going a little bit slower than expected. So from what we can tell, it largely has lost a decent bit of momentum, but that was kind of expected at some point. We were expecting that they were going to lose momentum, and it looks like they finally largely did in most fronts, and now they're just maintaining and holding the area that they currently have under their control, at least from what we would know. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least the best we can, at least in my opinion. And with that, we're now going to be moving back down into the Vovchansk area, where we also got to see the Russians getting hit hard again, this time by a dragon drone. Check this out. Is that Chad music? It is. We're going to be muting that. And we see them just raining fire down on the Russians. It's a good day for them down there. It's a warm day. A long-lasting day.
I like it when they go along the tree line, Bliat, and give them some nice visibility. The light, it sheds a light on them, Bliat. Bring them out, the
Long-lasting light.
rotis.
We want real light. Longer-lasting light. And they give it to him, free of charge. They just hand it out to him. And also, the Russians dropped a Fab 500 in Vovchansk today, near the Vovchansk aggregate plant. I wanted to show this clip, because it really will show y'all how heavily destroyed Vovchansk really is, because we got to see the really external view of Vovchansk from the north looking south, and you can see that every single building has been reduced to the foundations in the city, and most of the taller commie blocks have also been reduced to rubble as well, and very few of them exist above several stories tall. Also, the chat just disconnected. Matthew, are you there? Are you there?
Yes, I can hear you. I don't know why the chat did disconnect on my end as well. Kind of odd. YouTube's glitching all over the place, man. I love them.
Man, we love to see it. But here's the Russian bomb inside of Vovchansk. It's going to land right over here on the right side of the screen. And you'll see the shockwave and everything. There's literally so little in the city, the shockwave doesn't even really get disrupted by much of anything. And we see the bomb explode right there, the shockwave traveling through that area of the city. And we now see the drone zooming in and once again showing that the entire area of that part of the city has been flattened, and showing the white mushroom cloud rising from that explosion. And with that, that's the end of that clip, but still showing us what's going on in Vovchansk in all directions. The Ukrainians inflicting very high damage onto the Russians, and the Russians using limited Air Force abilities to try and strike at Ukrainian forces that just captured the aggregate plant around 48 hours ago. But moving on from that and into the northern area of Ukraine, we also got to see that some drones ended up hitting some Russians in northern Kharkiv. Check this out. And we see the drone coming on down, and oh, here we go. Bam! Dead on the nail. And we can see them going for another one. Oh, that's good.
Oh, man. They just can't help but go for one after the other. Another one. Oh, yep, another one. Oh, yep, another one.
We're Costco guys. Of course we drop 1,000 bombs on the Russians. Like, it's just something like that.
Oh, goodness.
We're Costco guys. Of course we order 1,000 bottles of baby oil.
Excuse me, we don't sell baby oil.
Ain't nothing like a Diddy party.
I bet the attorney for Diddy came back out and said, "Oh, damn, that's right. I got Costco mixed up with somewhere else. That's right, another grocery store." And the other grocery store is going to come out and be like, "No, we don't sell baby oil. We just took it off the shelf yesterday."
Man, nah, they would come out literally with, like, the receipts from the local stores, be like, Diddy has never bought anything from these stores. Like, they'd probably do something like that.
They had no relations with Diddy. I don't even know who Diddy is. Who is that man? Diddy? I've never heard of him. He's a random stranger. He just ran across my yard, and I said, "Who's that?" That's Diddy.
Diddy's out there diddling. but anyways, moving on from that and on down towards Svatovi, we did get to see the Ukrainians hitting the Russians around this area as well. And check this out. And we can see the drone coming on down. Oh, it's a Russian dirt bike down there.
Someone said something about those parties, something about the parties, but I don't really know. I couldn't tell you for certain. They said they were all oiled up. I don't even know what that means, but all oiled up. Baby oil, Johnson's, all there at the party. I don't even know what it was, but it was nasty.
Man, I'm telling you what, man, it's crazy. It's crazy, man.
I slowly lost my impersonation there at the end. I couldn't do it for some reason. I slowly got worse as the whole impersonation went on.
Also, someone said someone used to hang with Diddy. Everyone hung with Diddy, really. I mean, like, if you go back and look, like, everyone was around Diddy for some reason or another. Some of them, like Denzel Washington, said they knew and they would leave the parties early. But once again, just to put this out there, it's not always great to be in with the gang, you know, to look cool with everyone and to really be hip with them, you know what I mean? Because usually a lot of them are doing really questionable stuff. That really applies to every category. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Hope some people are paying attention with that. But anyways, we can see the fires burning down there in the woods quite nicely. And that's the end of the clip right there. But really nice to see that the Ukrainians were able to knock out some Russians in some exciting fashion today. But moving on from that and into Bakhmut, we also get to see the Rag hitting the Russians. And so here's the clip. And we can see right here.
Pepod.
Oh, say what?
It said Pepod.
Man, I'm telling you what, man. Pepod. Like Rag, you know what I mean? And we can see them here continuing to slam and target the Russian forces in this area.
Also, by the way, I can't help but weigh in on this. I'm seeing in the live chat. People are talking about Justin Bieber in here. I'll be honest with you. I've never cared for Justin Bieber, but after hearing and seeing, like, apparently what happened with that whole situation, like, I actually look at that guy a whole lot differently now. It's like, if he acts a little bit weird or maybe a little screwed up, I think there's actually maybe a real, like, a justified reason behind it. From the sounds of it, it sounds like he got messed with quite badly.
Yeah, he got messed with badly, like, publicly and privately. Like, a lot of it was actually caught on camera, you know, like, ceremonies and stuff like that. It's like, that's pretty horrendous, man. I feel sorry for him, actually. And it's a nasty world out there because you got a lot of people, like, this is how it works. Some people, like, believe these stupid things, like, it's like they're trying to, like, indoctrinate people to Satan and stuff. No, you would think that, like, it's pretty immoral stuff, but what it really is that a whole bunch of egotistical people who all think that they're the top of the world and everyone else is subhuman gather together, and whenever they have power over each other, they like to exert that power to make sure that they have a power trip and they make those other people feel subhuman like they view them. That's really what all of that is. That's why I'm not really, like, batting to, like, you know, like, Enforcer goes to Hollywood, like, we went there and it was actually pretty bad just hanging out in Hollywood is just like a normal person. Like, I'm not really, like, batting to get in that category, and also that's why we're not really batting to get into, like, any gangs or communities even here on YouTube, because there are people out there who do questionable stuff, and there's actually a pretty decent amount of them out there in the world, like, not just in Hollywood, but here as well. I'm sure many people know that, because it's like every month that a new YouTuber comes out, and there's some sort of a freak of a sort, you know, and that's why we don't really like to go out and be like, oh, we have to be hip and in with a gang and, like, know everyone and hang out with them and, like, do things with them, because, you know, something like that's going to come out one day on someone, and I'm not going to have that reflect badly on us, because we wouldn't have been a part of that anyways. So why in the world are we even going to be risking being around some people that we consider to be a little bit risky, you know, just, you know, like, assessing them on our own. But anyways, moving on from that, we also did get to see the 5th Assault Brigade taking down some drones as well. And of course, we're going to keep this muted. There's copyrighted music. But we can see them rolling the credits at the beginning of the video.
Man, these things are, like, so consistent, like, the way the Ukrainians are taking these things out. It almost feels like we're watching duplicates.
Honestly, it kind of is. Like, they come in from the same angles, hitting the drones in the same ways.
very consistent with taking these out. It's like the Russians just can't keep these things in the air at this point.
Man, these little drones are just gliding around, not knowing that they're about to get nuked. Like every single one of them. And we
They
see
even added a spear to the front of this one.
Man, look at that, man. They got a needle. They're going to give this thing like a vaccine or something. Like, look at that.
Oh.
Bam! And they got it. Dang. I don't know what the hell that last part was, but still, with that's the end of the clip. And
that was that thing from that
oh,
movie. It goes,
no.
oh, no.
Yeah. Oh, no. Like, dude, I was like, what the hell's that? Why is that here? I have no idea. But anyways, moving on from that, we also got to see the 92nd Brigade also taking its turn at doing some damage with their drones. And we're going to be muting that right there. But we see the Gyansen coming on down and slamming into him right there, catching it on fire, making it explode. JJ Powder says, while still visible in the chat, did I get kicked out, chat? No, you did not get kicked out, chat. I see you. I see you right there. You're visible to me. I see you. We see them hitting another one. A dirt bike, as a matter of fact. And oh, and an ATV and another dirt bike. Oh, and then hitting a UAZ 469. Oh, right on the driver's door. And hitting a tank. Oh, a T-72 B, most likely. And a Russian soldier. Oh, and another one on a dirt bike. Oh, right on the backpack.
200 points.
And a Buhanka. Oh! Oh! And another one. Oh! And he's gone. And another one, folks. It's an ATV. Oh my goodness, rest in pieces. No more ATV for them. And another one. Oh! And they got him. Can we get a T-72, though? It's a Christmas miracle. They got it. And they're about to get a nice UAZ. Patriot, actually. And they obliterated loads. It was an impressive thing. Impressive work right there. And absolutely amazing to see. And with that, we're going to be moving on from that little clip around the area of Bakhmut. And we're actually going to be moving on down to Pokrovsk. And many of y'all may notice this. There's nothing in Pokrovsk, but that's because we're going to be taking y'all over here really quickly to an interesting group. It's something that kind of has something to do a little bit with the war, and also how Kharkiv veterans are molding the next generation of Ukrainian warriors. And it's a very interesting clip, actually showing a little bit of the life of the Ukrainian citizenry at this point, and how things are going behind the lines. And so that brings us on over to none other than United 24. And so, without further ado, here is the video.
I'm almost 33 years old, and most of the friends in my age, they do sensible things, you know. I'm standing here on a field with a bunch of hooligans from Kharkiv, and right now questioning a little bit my life choices, but it'll be alright, I hope.
Все, пацаны, начинаем!
It's my gang. We're not a football club. We're a big family. We fight together, train together, live together.
Fight club out here, I'm telling you. Oh, Corgi.
It's around 12 at noon on Saturday in Kharkiv, and as you know, during the war there are not so many options for young people to do basically anything. You know, there's a curfew at night, and there's bombs falling on the city, and so a lot of things, you know, are just not working like they would in civilian life. So the guys we are with today, they decided to take this matter into their own hands and to create a project that is a mix between war veterans who are fighting or were fighting here and young people who are looking for something to do and to combine the two and to create an ultras hooligan football play project that really just brings everything together. They're called Urban FK, or Urban Football Club, and yeah, we're gonna go for a training with them and see what happens.
Manchester has been fighting all his life, first as a hooligan, then as a soldier. He and his fellow co-founders of the Urban Football Club joined the army in the first days of the full-scale invasion. After defending their city, Kharkiv, which is 40 kilometers from the Russian border, they participated in the counter-offensive of the Kharkiv region, the battle for Bakhmut, and more. We arrive at a neglected, barren football field somewhere on the Kharkiv outskirts. The atmosphere is surprisingly friendly. Some guys bring their children. Young and old, all are welcome under the summer sun. Before we begin, Manchester shares a little about the project.
Well, firstly, I would like to state that a lot of guys who are now soldiers used to belong to subcultures like ours, where you can be yourself, express yourself, scream out loud if you want to, all the things you can't do at home. And we got sick of seeing kids getting shit-faced in bars and wanted to show them, by our own example, how it's possible to spend your free time. So the story of the UFK is that these groups of kids from different districts reached out to us, the old school hooligans, and asked us to show them a different lifestyle. So we agreed to show them how you can spend your free time during the war, that you don't have to go to the bar and tell everyone stories of how you killed someone in Bakhmut, but you can do it here, on the field, show how you survived Bakhmut but returned to form a healthy, cool, bright, new generation.
It's time to get started.
We start with running.
I don't know what made the United 24%er pick that like
After
Stuttgart shirt with that writing on it in the black.
By the
That's kind of
omnipresent
interesting.
You know, that is interesting. I would say, Matthew, for sure. I would say that is a very interesting choice.
air raid
Is that a good
alarm.
snack?
We stretch.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. I got the little peanut butter like cracker things. Just in case y'all didn't know, this video was thrown up because I was dying of hyperglycemia and I had to go get something or else I was going to starve to death on the show. So back to the video.
And do a couple of rounds of shadow boxing. Then it's time for violence.
I'm almost 33 years old, and most of the friends in my age, they do sensible things, you know, they drink expensive wines with their wife, so they take care of their kids at home on a weekend. I'm standing here on a field with a bunch of hooligans from Kharkiv, and right now questioning a little bit my life choices, but it'll be alright, I hope.
Then it begins.
Scared, no, but a little bit nervous, for sure.
Все, пацаны, начинаем!
One minute work, and we change partners. One round only with the left hand, one only with the right. Then left to the head, right to the body. For the last round, we combine boxing with takedowns.
Перевел на пол или вырвал, да. Ай-яй-яй, вырвал.
It's easily 30 degrees in the sun, but they're used to
I
it.
didn't know they did takedowns in
Me,
boxing.
on the other hand,
Look at that boiler.
my energy is almost at zero. After fighting one-on-one, it's time for the big scuffle.
Yeah, brawlhalla,
What's gonna happen
baby.
now is what is the traditional or the most essential part of hooliganism in Ukraine, also in other parts of Europe. So they meet for an organized fight, free fight on a field like this, 4 against 4, 5 against 5, 100 against 100. The original plan for the guys was that I join them, but as you can see from my face, the training leading up to the fight was already more than enough. But anyways, we're gonna hear and see it live in action. Yeah, instead of going to the club and drinking vodka Red Bull, this is what kids in Ukraine do.
The rules are simple. No hits to the genitalia or throat. If you go down, your teammates expect you to get back up and help them. It's not uncommon that you find yourself fighting 2 or 3 guys alone. The last men standing win. That's it.
Sounds like a street fight.
Yeah, this sounds just like street thugs or something like that.
Good.
Dang, the hit to the back of the head there, that would be illegal in most places. And usually, if you get hit in the back of the head hard enough, your brain can actually swell and you can become a vegetable. So that was an interesting thing to see. I'm not gonna lie, folks, I don't know about y'all. I don't feel like this is the kind of thing I do. Like, just saying, you know, I'm not really one of the people to go around just brawling in an open field, you know. I kind of gotta, you know, if I fight
Man,
at
it's
all,
like-
it's gotta be for a reason, you know.
It's like you would think that if it was going to be like a fight like this, they'd at least like have some like general rules or something where they don't smash each other back in the back of the head and stuff and
Yeah.
like break noses and teeth. It's like at least like do something. This is like straight up street fighting.
Yeah, I was like, this is like, I don't know. I don't really think this is like anything like admirable. Like, it's like, so we're not in the bar, we're just outside beating each other. It's like, is it like, it's like, I don't know. I think it's better to be in the bar at this point than just beating each other. But anyways, with that, let's get back to the video. We got a little bit more to go, and it's actually pretty interesting.
Am I glad I did not join that?
It's hard to understand if you have never experienced it, but this extreme violence, this chaos, it can be helpful. For one, it's a release. In that moment, you forget the world around you. Secondly, it makes you stronger. And in a strange way, it makes you happy.
That's how we exchange our experiences and unite.
My mic was muted. If that's true, why didn't he join in?
Oh, I thought we were lagging or something for a minute. I was sitting there thinking, damn, we just lagged out too. But yeah, seriously, why didn't he join in there? I thought that guy was going to be tough and jump in that street fight.
Yeah, he was like, it's a relaxing, it's an enjoyable experience, and it makes you stronger. It's like, why did you hop in then, man? Get in there. It's like, dude, I would not find that relaxing or anything. My ass would be beat. I would be sore the next day. I would have hated it. Honestly, I would have been like, I'm never doing that again. But anyways, back to the video.
You see how happy the kids are when they are fighting. Today is the day of the Slavic meat grinder, a holiday of body and
Russians
soul.
know about
This
that.
is our culture, where you can be yourself and not worry about what other people think.
Here are my friends, my closest people, and I stand with them forever. I'm happy to see them. I feel comfortable around them. The older guys are super nice. They found a way to connect with us. We're very grateful for that, and we'll do our best to always move forward.
And just how is it to be young in Kharkiv at this time?
To be honest, it's cool, it's fun, and it's wild. It's my gang. We're not a football club, we're a big family. We fight together, train together, live together.
Hey, Corgi! Dude, there's a little Corgi!
Yes. When you ran off, you ate your snack earlier. I pointed out that corgi right there. It runs across the screen here in a second.
Oh, that's a
I'm
cute.
14, soon I'll be 15.
It's a
How
fluffer.
does it feel as a 15-year-old to go on a field and to beat the shit out of each other with guys who are much bigger?
Can I swear? I don't give a crap, really not. It's awesome. I can beat the older kids and get away with it.
Okay, being young in Kharkiv is probably kind of hard. What else do you do except for UFK? I don't know, for fun or to keep your mind off things?
I study, I train, I hang out with my friends. In general, you get used to it and you don't notice. War, no war, there's no difference. Of course, it's sad because of death and explosions, but in time, you just get used to all of it. It becomes your new rhythm of life. I'm just always working on myself to become better. I want to say hello to all my friends, and thanks to you guys, thanks to the boys here. UFK! Oh, and thanks to my mom. Mom, I love you.
After
Mom, this
training,
ass
we
beating
leave
I'm
the
about to put on this random kids for you. Like, I love it. I love it.
boys for a couple
So
of
what
hours.
is this, by the way? Is this like a gang or what? Is it? I'm not really understanding.
It is kind of a gang, but in Europe, this is what's called football hooligans. So football hooligans are like the extreme fans of a football club. So let's take, for example, Arsenal FC, which is a really famous football club in the soccer world, or in the football world, as everyone in Europe would call it. So with that group, you have the Arsenal fans. And then in that group of Arsenal fans, there's this little group called the hooligans. And the hooligans are pretty much like a gang, but their entire like identity is attached to the football club that they're a fan of. But they're all pretty much the same. They just get in brawls with each other and stuff like that. Decent amount of people in Europe, from what I know, don't really like them because they end up just causing chaos wherever they go. In Britain, it's actually a really big deal dealing with the hooligans, and it ends up becoming like the British police's top priority whenever a football match is going on is to stop the hooligan gangs from making contact with each other, because if they do, it literally devolves into a massive riot.
Well, yeah, I was looking at the whole thing thinking it kind of reminds me of like a normal like American street gang or something. Like they're beating each other up and stuff like that. They're kind of like got a like a free will approach to everything, kind of like that. It's kind of like the Rampers or something like they used to have like in New York or something. Just street gangs of kids.
Yeah, I was like, dang, I was like, this is a little interesting. It's interesting that United 24 would make a piece on them because I'm seeing a decent amount of people saying, yeah, no one really likes them in Europe. So it's kind of interesting that they'd even make a piece on like a group that's generally unliked, which are hooligans. And also there are going to be some people who are like, the enforcer isn't hard because he doesn't want to get his ass beat in the streets. It's like, obviously I don't. I have common sense, unlike some. It's like, I don't want to get beat. Like, I don't consider like a fine afternoon getting my ass beat in a back alley. Like, that's just kind of like common sense for me. Like, if I was getting my ass beat, it'd have to be for a pretty good reason. Couldn't just be because I was bored. You know what I mean? Like, that just wouldn't make sense to me. So you can call me weak or whatever. I call that having a little bit of sense, at least to me. But getting back to the rest of the clip that we have.
In the evening, we rejoined them at a small amateur league football stadium. So today is the final game of the Kharkiv summer season. Anyone who watches the news knows that the Kharkiv summer has been one of violence and blood. It started in May with the new offensive of Russia, and that's been going on all summer. Just rockets, assaults, fights just outside the city. At the same time, there's this parallel world of football. Yeah, it's something escapist, something that everybody runs away to on the weekend and forgets about war and normal life for an hour or two. And it's coming to an end, sadly, today, the summer. But the atmosphere, nonetheless, is pretty amazing. Their team, named exactly like the fan group, Urban FK, is playing in the final of Kharkiv Summer League. Their outfit, a golden dragon on a black background, was designed and printed by themselves. The match begins. It's close. 1-0, 1-1, 2-1, 2-2. The Ultras FK cheer on their team with everything they have. The older boys dictate what songs to sing. The younger ones follow their lead. All their energy and passion is natural. There is a strict no alcohol rule in their part of the stadium.
So instead of alcohol, they just like start biting their fingers? Like, am I getting this right? Like, did you see that, Matthew?
Man started eating his fingers.
Man, that man was looking for some chicken wings and he found the next best thing, a finger. It's like, dude, don't do that. It's like, bro, no alcohol's allowed because if you had booze involved, you would be eating the finger, literally. It's like, dang.
As the game nears the end, the boys prepare for the highlight, the fire show. They put on masks, take off their shirts, and distribute flares. Just a couple of minutes before the final whistle, the teams are still tied. Everyone is ready to go into penalties, but then the Urban Football Club scores 2 quick goals. 4-2. The boys can't hold back, and the fire show erupts. Victory is theirs.
I'm not gonna lie, the way that people are like glancing over at them and stuff, it's like people are almost scared of them to an extent.
I think they are, Matthew. I think they actually are. Like, I would be honest with you. I also think our fella here on United 24 is scared of him, because he didn't join in the nice friendly bout in the fields where everyone was getting their back of their heads beat in. Like, he didn't join in on that.
And everyone is very happy. It's really something. It's something escapist, you know. For a couple of hours, you can just.
You see, this guy is really struggling to make this out to be a positive thing. He's like, I don't even get it. Like, you can tell he wants to say that, but he's like, this is just wonderful stuff. Like, it's like, if I was there and I was that guy, I would be like, I'm not really getting this. Like, it's not me. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I would be saying. But still, nice to know they have something to do, I suppose.
Run away from all the problems of normal life, and it's always quite amazing how something so simple like football can make people so happy, especially kids. As you can see, they're very passionate about it, and I think they're going to sleep well tonight, even if Russia throws bombs at the city anyways.
But behind these fun and games lies the harsh reality of life in Kharkiv. And it's something you can never forget. The boys of the Urban FK have dedicated their project to their friend, Kirill Bayev, nicknamed Bayan, who died in 2023 near Bakhmut from a gunshot wound. He was only 21 years old.
And with that, that's the end of the clip, but a really interesting look at a football club in Kharkiv. But moving on from that and down the line towards the area of Polohi, we also get to see Russian forces getting hit in this area as well. Of course, the Ukrainians still conducting anti-drone interceptions. Check this out. Oh, and they got Nabila. And SDG said, I'm sure there are bird watchers and such too. I'm very sure of that. I don't know why they picked the football hooligans. But I mean, like, you know, I'm sure there's like Ukrainians that are like into train spotting, bird watching, you know, like, you know, building models, playing with like RC cars, you know, something like that. I'm sure there's many of them. But moving on from that and into Cranky, we also get to see the 73rd Brigade hitting the Russians hard down in the Kherson area. Check this out. Oh, we're going to be muting that, but we can see here they're finding the Russians where they are and targeting them where they lie. Check it out, they're about to burn them.
Oh! There was a hole in the roof.
Oh! Oh! And another one. And that bird
I thought that pelican right there was about to hit the... I thought it was about to be an explosion with the pelican.
That's it, bro, the pelican. Whip out the pelican.
I think they have a house fire.
I think they do. Someone needs to call the fire brigade.
Does that mean not coming on then?
Speaking of the fire brigade, y'all, I actually saw someone, I think they ended up getting in a crash and dying out there on the highway today because I was driving around and stuff. I don't think I told Matthew the story, but someone was out there on a Honda Gullwing, and I was coming down the highway, and their Honda Gullwing had been just, it looked like it was pretty messed up from what I could tell, and it had slid like hundreds of feet away from the guy on the street, and there were first responders and everything gathering around. They were doing the CPR on the guy. I think it was actually, I think it may have been close to fatal or fatal, that crash was, speaking of the fire brigade, which reminded me of that today. If for some reason, y'all, I don't know what it is, but nowadays, whenever I get out and I go anywhere, someone's either had almost like a near fatal accident, or they've ended up like getting offed somehow, some way in a crash or something like that. I don't know what it is with that. Like, I was telling my mom, I was like, dang, I feel like the Grim Reaper these days, because everywhere I go, there's always someone almost dead or dead these days. But moving on from that.
Man, to ride a motorcycle up here in this traffic is like almost like a death sentence. Like, even when we lived like way back in Wetumpka and stuff, where it was kind of like not that busy, like around the town, when I used to ride a motorcycle, I had close calls like literally all the damn time of people like pulling out in front of me, like trying to take me off the bike, like road rage and stuff. Motorcycles are dangerous. Like, they're fun as hell. Like, I love riding motorcycles, but they're honestly like dangerous and like the modern society with angry drivers.
Yeah, it's a really dangerous thing to ride a motorcycle, especially up here. But hopefully the guy lived. If he did live, he's probably in rough shape from what I could tell, because, it literally had just happened. Everyone was racing out there to the guy and everything. But it was rough looking. It was really rough looking. But anyways, moving on from that, we did get to see this little Russian jet ski getting slammed. And we can see the Russian jet ski continuing to fly down the river. The Russian completely unaware of the drone right behind him. And it's too late for them. Oh, and they hit it. Dang! Right on the nail. And we can see here another drone coming in and hitting whatever remains. Oh, and they got it. And with that, that's the end of the clip right there. Very nice to see that they were able to slam that nice little jet ski in that area. And with that, we also got an interesting little clip from Mykolaiv, where we got to see a Russian T-62 that was captured by the Ukrainians, repurposed and serving in a Ukrainian National Guard unit inside of Mykolaiv. Pretty cool to see that they're actually trying to reintegrate even older T-62s, and something to note. But moving on from that and up into Kyiv, it's time for us to get on to the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 947 of the war. And interesting enough,
hey, look, he's in the streets of Manhattan.
Man, I'm out here in the streets of New York City. It's just like, dude, look at this. He's in New York, like in the streets. It's like he's out there on like the Jimmy Fallon show, although that's not like a show.
And he has no security. Look, he's out here by himself. Like there's nobody standing around guarding him like that fellow or those 10 or 15 people in the background.
Or anyone like that. Yeah, not at all. It's a very impromptu thing, Matthew. You should know better. But anyways, with that, here's the clip.
I wish you good health, fellow Ukrainians.
Wait a minute. That was rough.
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці.
What's up with the audio? Dude, it's deep fried. Did you hear that? Like, listen to this.
Бажаю здоров'я.
What is up with the audio? Like, anyways, we're gonna get to the speech. Here's the speech.
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці, українки. Сьогодні була зустріч з Дональдом Трампом. Дуже продуктивна і детальна. Я дуже вдячний. Це загалом був наповнений довгий, надзвичайно важливий тиждень в Америці. Як ми і планували, сьогодні вирушаємо додому після всіх потрібних перемовин. І всі перемовини, а саме такі, як потрібні Україні. План перемоги представлений Америці, і ми кожен пункт пояснили. Тепер на рівні наших команд ми будемо працювати, щоб наповнити кожен крок, кожне наше рішення. Сильні позиції для України – це швидший мир. Все ключове для України на столі у партнерів, все розглядається, далекобійність, оборонний пакет, санкції проти Росії, кроки щодо російських активів. Ми по всіх темах встигнули попрацювати, готуємось до зустрічі в Німеччині в рамках Рамштайну. Це формат, де разом з партнерами ми будемо йти за змістом пунктів плану перемоги. Дякую президенту Байдену за запрошення. Вчора в Вашингтоні ми з президентом пройшли всі ключові речі, всі ключові рішення. Дякую за прагнення реалізувати саме такий шлях, щоб Україна виграла. Дякую за безпрецедентний військовий пакет та відповідні рішення. Великий пакет, обсяг майже 8 мільярдів. Це підтримує наших воїнів та увесь наш народ. Зокрема, є хороші речі для ППО перед зимою. Були зустрічі в Конгресі США. Повна підтримка, обидві партії, обидві палати. Вдячний усім сенаторам, усім членам Палати представників за розмови, за дружні поради, за питання, які дійсно дозволять досягти результатів важливих нашої спільної сили і миру завдяки силі. Як ми від початку і прагнули, план перемоги був представлений обом кандидатам в президенти. Зустріч з віце-президенткою Камалою Гарріс вчора. Довга розмова. І сьогодні Дональд Трамп. Розмова майже годину. Для України важливо, щоб Америка розуміла Україну безпосередньо. Саме так і є. Цю російську війну треба закінчувати і закінчувати справедливо, щоб жоден агресор не робив більше такого, як Росія. Ми маємо і нові домовленості по реконструкції. G7+, більш ніж 30 країн приєднались та Євросоюз. Це аналог нашого формату щодо безпеки. Була безпекова декларація Сімки, і на її основі ми зробили безпекові угоди вже 26, які посилюють нас, поки ми ще не в НАТО. І тепер будуть двосторонні документи з країнами щодо реконструкції, щодо чітких кроків кожної країни. А найголовніше фронт. Ми зробили все залежне від нас, від України, щоб максимально посилитись. І тепер разом з партнерами нам потрібно забезпечити саме те, що наблизить справедливий мир. Росія повинна програти цю війну, Україна має виграти. І це реальні основи для спільної безпеки. Мир завдяки силі. Дякую всім, хто нам допомагає. Слава Україні!
And really quickly,
Героям слава.
Героям slava. And that is the end of the speech from President Zelensky. But I just want to point something out to everyone really quickly. Very quickly, okay? Now, I've never believed a conspiracy theorist in my life, but I actually believe this conspiracy theory now, Matthew. There is a shadow government behind the scenes that controls America and Ukraine that is pulling all of the strings. And I believe, Matthew, that the shadow government that's running everything is Big U-Haul because of the placement of that U-Haul truck. Now, that is ad placement if I've ever seen it in a video, Matthew. It's literally, Zelensky isn't even center screen. The U-Haul is literally symmetrically center of the screen. Like, that was the funniest thing.
I guarantee you 100% that U-Haul is affiliated with some security service in the area. It's not uncommon for those to be used to like transport security personnel, like covertly to let them be basically flying under the radar, because there's no way they would allow a U-Haul on the street that's secured with Zelensky on it. That would be a huge violation. So that thing's got to be associated with the security.
Oh, you know it, man, because you know they're not going to sit there and let that U-Haul there and be like, hey, we need someone to move it. Whose name is it under? Timothy McVeigh. Who's that? And then, you know, like blows up or something. It's like, they're not going to let that happen. It is full of probably more bodyguards, motor bodyguards, long-lasting bodyguards, big bodyguards with big guns. And also, I like, Matthew, that for one of the first times ever, you can actually see the size of the security detail that is around Zelensky, and it's dozens of people. I mean, they're literally everywhere, like all over the place.
Man, they're crawling everywhere. I don't blame them though, because I'm sure Zelensky had to ask permission to come outside to like film this thing, and they're probably like, do you have to? And he's probably like, yes, I have to. It's like, okay, let's go outside, and everybody had to like send out like 30 or 40 like security guys to secure the street.
Dude, he sat there, man, and he was like, I have to go outside. I have to make my vlog, and they're like, do you? Yes, I have so many followers. I have to make my followers happy. Get me out there. And then they're like, oh, okay, we'll get you out there, man. And so he gets out there, and he's like, yo, what's up, everyone? I'm President Zelensky. Welcome to my YouTube channel, or something like that. And they're all like,
wild. The guy's got like more security than like presidential candidates, it looks like, with the amount of guys out here on the street. Like some of these guys, you can tell that some of them are security, like the guy standing in the middle of the street. But some of the guys standing off to the left and right who look a little unassuming, they're also probably security as well. And this is a lot of guys out here. And also, there's probably like plenty more behind the camera.
Also, interestingly enough, it looks like the NYPD is out here too, because you can actually see one of their officer caps over there behind Zelensky's shoulder.
Interesting. I wonder how it is to, not have a mayor here anymore.
Oh, that's a good question. I wonder.
I
ponder. Maybe we could ask the Turks about that. But anyways,
Oh.
But anyways, with that, I hope that does break down Zelensky's speech video fairly well. And with that is the end of the speech from President Zelensky completely now. And we're going to be moving on into the second segment, where we get to talk to all of y'all. And it is always an incredibly fun segment. But I get to give a huge thanks and a huge shout out to the 54,000 people who have watched this stream so far tonight, and the 9.7 thousand people who were here at the peak. Y'all are the reason why we run this channel. And I got to thank all of y'all once again for finding this to be your source of news. Y'all can go anywhere and everywhere on the internet, yet y'all choose to be here. And we are entirely honored and wildly grateful for that. And we thank you all once again for being here. And now, Matthew, that I have a few peanut butter crackers in my stomach, which are very filling, actually. I highly recommend those if you're ever dying of hunger or hyperglycemia or something. We are going to move on into them questions. We're going to grab them questions, and we're going to answer them questions. So, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so jumping into our final question segment of the night. We have plenty of good super chats to get to, plenty of good live chats as well. Sadly, though, we're out of polls. We do love the polls quite a bit, but we're out.
Aw.
And with that, we're jumping into our first super chat of the last segment, which goes to none other than Andy L., who put in a $50 donation. And huge shout out to you, Andy, for always supporting the channel as well. Andy is always supporting it, and we appreciate it. And he put in a super sticker. He put in that Doge creature and said, "You're amazing." And also, huge thanks to you, Andy, for persevering as well tonight. You were also having glitches with the super chat, like many others tonight, which is unfortunate to hear. I hope that gets fixed soon, but thank you very much once again. And Enforcer, what say you?
I gotta say a massive thanks to you for the support and bearing with that. I know that must have been incredibly aggravating and incredibly difficult to deal with, but I gotta thank every single person who has dealt with that tonight and has supported the channel to help it to keep on running. Of course, you didn't attach a comment, but the support does mean a lot, Andy L., and I got to thank you once again. I hope you're still getting closer to hitting that mile-long target that you're trying to hit. It's not a mile-long target, but it's a mile away from where the gun is, and I hope that you're able to finally hit that one day and do an amazing job hitting that thing on the first or the second shot. And I bet, Andy L., you'll hit it on the first shot, no doubt. And so with that, huge thanks to you once again for support, Andy L. I hope that does address that well, and I hope you've been having a great night tonight as well. And with that, thank you once again, and we are on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to Rad Doctor, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Rad Doctor, for that support. That's what they call the doctor that does the radiation. He's the Rad Doctor. And he said, why does the U.S. or any other countries disclose weapons being sent to Ukraine? And why not just let the Russians guess at what hit them and eliminate all these discussions of what weapons are being sent and how to deal with it?
The reason why is because there has to be a bit of public disclosure, not just for the public here in America, but also for the Russians, for them to actually understand what they're going to be dealing with. We actually do that to make sure that there isn't unnecessary escalation, because if they know exactly what's going to be in Ukraine, they don't have to guess, did they send them something insane? Like, did we send them a Tomahawk or something, and are they going to be launching those into Russia soon? They don't have to worry about that because they largely got the publicized list 100% accurate of exactly what was going to be sent. So we do that not because we want to be really transparent, we want to be really cool. We do it so that way we don't unnecessarily escalate the conflict, and we just tell them what's coming so that way they don't freak out too much and they have kind of a proportionate response to the stuff we're sending. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and I thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running, Rad Doctor, and I hope that does answer the question. With that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one's going to go to Natasha Millman, who put in a $20 donation as well. And a huge shout out to Natasha for that support on the channel. We appreciate it. You're helping to keep the lights on and also helping to keep everything running. And I was scrolling back up here to see there was a super sticker attached. No comment, but it's a YouTube person, it looks like. That's the first I've ever seen that super sticker. They put in the heart emoji right there. And thank you very much for that kind of super chat right there. And we appreciate it. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I thank you so much for support, Natasha Millman, and helping this channel to keep on running. You didn't throw in a comment, but you did throw in a super sticker, not a super sticker, with a big heart on it. And I gotta thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running with big heart and big intentions. And I gotta thank you once again for making this channel possible and helping it to keep on running. And so with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And what do we got, Matthew?
And this one's going to go to Davo LBC, who puts in a 20 as well. A huge shout to Davo for that support. He said, LSA Private Davo LBC reporting. He said, 3, 2, 1, run.
Oh, where? Why? But still, thank you for the support, Davo LBC. And we will run, hopefully, many times, great times, long-lasting times. And I got to say, thank you so much once again for support and being our Davo LBC of the Lee Spring Army. And I got to thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running, because you're one of the folks who helped to make this channel possible tonight. And so with that, thank you once again, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one is going to go to Jason Carpenter, who puts in a 20 as well. And thank you, Jason, for also throwing in a $20 donation and helping to keep the coffee brewing and the lights on. And he said, hi, guys, I want to stop by and kick in. And he said, we must never negotiate with a dictator, and history has shown us that.
I completely agree. We must never negotiate with dictators and questionable groups. I don't know why we started to fall into that mindset these days. Well, I know it's because everyone says that peace is to be achieved at all costs, even if it means we have to talk to some very questionable people to get that done. And I think that's a really stupid stance to have. And is a really weak one at that. It's very cowardly. It doesn't secure our interests. And I would say that we certainly do need to make sure that we never negotiate with dictators, we never negotiate with terrorists, we can't negotiate with any of them, because they will turn around and stab us in the back, because that's what they do. They're brutal throat-cut dictators, or they're brutal and cutthroat terrorist organizations. We will make an agreement with them, we will honor the agreement, they have no reason to do such a thing. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support, Jason Carpenter. I hope that does address that incredibly well, and thank you once again for supporting this channel and helping it to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here is going to go to a Jackal, who puts in a $20 donation. Thank you very much, Jackal, for that support. And also, let me check real quick. I can't recall if it said that was your first one ever. I can't recall. So let me scroll up here and take a look. It says it's not your first one, but thank you very much for that $20 support. And it said, hello from a sunny Melbourne, Australia. And I watch a lot of channels like yours, but I always enjoy your way of delivery.
Thank you so much for enjoying our way of delivery. One second. Thank you so much. And I gotta say, a big hello to Melbourne, Australia. A wonderful, beautiful place in Australia. Let me zoom in and go down here to Victoria, where Melbourne is. Look at Melbourne. Wonderful, beautiful Melbourne. You can tell where the industrial area is. It's right over here. It's always interesting about that. Like, you can easily tell in modern cities exactly where the industrial areas are, is because they're made up of nothing but massive buildings with a massive amount of open square footage inside of them, because that's what you need in a modern factory. That's what you need in a place like that. But let's go down to downtown Melbourne and let's take a look at it. Does it look nice? Does it not look nice? Causeway Inn.
Oh, look, the Causeway Inn on the mall.
Also, this person is getting jiggy with it on the shared zone sign. Like, they're not like walking, they're busting it down. Like, I've never seen a person like that before on a sign.
Busting it down right next to a Lada.
Yeah. But can we get out on the street? So, doesn't really seem like there's any cars in the street. They do have a tram though. And I have to say, what is up above us? The hell is that?
A net?
Oh, it's a catenary and a net for the trams. It's where they get their electrical connection overhead.
Oh, interesting. I guess the net's to prevent people from flying up.
Oh, I guess. I mean, like, they're sure as hell not jumping. So I don't know what the hell the net's for, but still pretty interesting. But yeah, I mean, this is not a bad place at all. Let's see. Let's go to another street here. Oh, there's the tram. That's actually a really nice one, a very modern one. Don't you agree, Matthew?
I like this trolley.
Trolley? You mean tram?
Or tramp.
Oh, to hell with you, boy. Beyond that.
Oh, look, tag hua.
Oh. yeah, dude. Will you sit there and you tag Chris's mom? Tag hua. Man, what do we have? St. Collins Lane. And then we have down there Leica. And then
Lots very cameras down there.
Yeah, not bad though. Not bad. You know, this actually kind of reminds me a little bit of, Matthew. You know what Melbourne's making me think of?
What's that?
Oh, dude, don't yawn on air like that. Dude, you used to diss on me for that, man. You used to be like, don't yawn, man. Like, we would get off air.
Well, you caught me right in the middle of talking.
Man, dude, I was like, dude, you know what that reminds me of? You're like, y'all, just to let y'all know, way back in the day, like when we first started this channel, Matthew would absolutely diss me off air for that. Like, I would yawn accidentally on air while talking, and after we get off air, he'd be like, dude, you can't yawn, man. And then he just did it, like, for the first time in 3 years. We got it, Matthew, we caught it. But moving on, this reminds me of Melbourne, downtown Seattle. Like, doesn't it kind of remind you of that, like with how it looked and everything?
I'll be honest with you, Seattle had a look of its own. Like, I wish we could have looked around there a lot more than we did. I really like Seattle. I don't know if it looks like really like Melbourne. I think Seattle is actually cleaner looking than what we just saw there. But it's a very nice place here. I know some people are going to be like, oh, there's a bad side. Of course there's a bad side. There's always a bad side. But the good side was really good. I liked it. And it also had public sanitation, all that good stuff. And also that little pier area was really nice. You could see the water.
Yeah, you know, and also I just want to point out a couple of things I think Seattle's done right, at least in their downtown area. Notice the street sidewalks are very clean. There's no like leaves or anything. It's a very, very clean sidewalk. The road has proper markings. Like the markings aren't completely worn out. Like some of them are getting a little faded, but it's not like to where they're like invisible, because it's like that in Birmingham in some places. The buildings look really nice and well kept. I mean, all of downtown Seattle actually looked pretty good. And also the pier area, which Matthew was talking about, was also really cool. Let me see if I can actually get us down here at it. And here we go. Damn you, you truck! But let's see. Oh, they were still building that, Matthew. Remember, we walked past that and everything.
Yeah, turn to the right some more, though. I think we might have been a little bit to the right.
Yeah, we were past the stupid truck.
It's down there. There's that Starbucks right there we went to on that corner. This damn truck, jeez.
Yeah, there's the Starbucks. So let me see if I can like beat the truck. Oh, now they're doing road construction. Why in the world are they doing all this on the street view? This is extra. But anyways, this is what it looked like. It was really nice in Seattle. I really liked it. I thought it was cool. So I was really enjoying it. Matthew enjoyed it. Everyone liked it, actually. We all really appreciated this place. But another thing that I was wanting to show y'all is LA, because like, you know, that's downtown Seattle. Now I want to show y'all downtown LA, at least near Union Station, because that was interesting. Like I was actually getting out of Union Station thinking that there might be a union in between me and Christ if I stood outside the station for a little while longer. But let me see if it looks like that when we drop the guy down. Also, Matthew, did you notice they changed the man? He's not yellow anymore, he's blue.
If I were blue, I believe I could die.
I believe I could die. So, let's see. And that's kind of it. Oh, man. Like, no, I don't even think we're going to get close. Because it was right here. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, there's one of them. Like it would just be stuff like that. And then someone, if I move over here, someone was on this staircase right here at the top of it, and they literally had out like the bandage and everything that they had wrapped around their arm, and they were like holding it with their teeth, and they had a syringe out, and they were literally shooting up like heroin or something right there on the staircase. Like it was legitimately crazy. They were everywhere. Like literally every few feet there was a homeless person right outside of LA Union Station. And it sucks because LA Union Station does look really cool. I mean, it's like this Mission Revival style train station. It's really neat. And then you don't even really get to look at it a lot because there's all of these people wandering around, and they're literally wandering around all the way up to the front door. So as soon as you get out of the Uber, you've got to like walk right in the station, or, you know, who knows what's going to happen, because everyone in LA was like, watch out for the homeless people. They're violent. You know, they could just attack you out of the blue like some kind of a feral animal. And it's like, okay, we need to keep that in mind and get in the station so that way we don't get mobbed or attacked or stabbed or something.
And when
like
when we walked up to that station and got out of that car to like walk in, I was like sketched out for a minute because like some very sketchy people were hanging out in front of the train station. They were acting a little uncouth, and as we were walking through, I was not really sure. It's like, should you look over there and be like, oh hey, how are you, or something like that, or just like go about your business and don't say anything? I felt like if you'd have said something, it would have been like maybe like a bad interaction or something, because everybody out there was acting like they were on the verge of like going berserk or something. It felt like that. Like the tension walking into the train station was like out of this world or something.
I would agree. It was insane, incredibly bizarre. And I would say downtown LA, we didn't really get to see it a lot because the LA Union Station was like the closest we got. Downtown LA is right over here. I wish we had been able to see more of it though. Like, not because it was like great looking or anything. I just wanted to see it to be able to witness it. So since we didn't, let's drop down, Matthew, into downtown LA and let's look at it. This isn't bad, actually. This is actually pretty nice.
It looks pretty clean, actually. Not too bad.
Man, what the hell was
Looks
that?
like maybe it's like one of the nice pockets or something like that, like where it's like Beverly Hills or Santa Monica or something like that.
Dude, we entered where the mole people live. Like, there's something, I don't know.
Mode.
Heavens and mole people. But beyond that, I mean, it didn't look that bad in downtown LA. I wish we'd actually been able to go down there and see it a little bit. Maybe it was rough in some places, maybe not in others, but not bad looking, not that bad. But LA Union Station and Hollywood were pretty questionable places. Like I just can't I can't even really skirt around that. Like I've just got to be honest with y'all. It wasn't really a place I'd go back to. Let me see if we drop down near the Chinese Theater, if it will show y'all that. Let me see here. Where in the... Oh, so here's Hollywood Boulevard up here. So there's the Walk of Fame. There's the Chinese Theater. So that means the Roosevelt is right there. So then we drop down. I hope we can see it. You've got to be kidding me. You've got to be
always
kidding.
Doing construction or something.
You've got to be kidding me, dude. Like, y'all aren't going to get to see it because it was a whole thing. Like, the sidewalk is nasty. Like, y'all can kind of even tell it here, but it's nastier in real life than it looks like on the street view. I mean, it literally is so bad, I was contemplating burning my shoes after we got home. Like, I was like, I don't know if I should or shouldn't. Like, it felt like there was, excrement on the streets and everything. It was just nasty. And, of course, they got to be doing some construction crap here where you can't really see it. But they would have, all these hecklers. They would have, Mickey and stuff out here. And they're just trying to heckle you for a dime or a dollar or whatever. It was really rough. I mean, it was an incredibly rough place. Would not recommend it. And also, by the way, not to crap on LA entirely and show you the worst places, because there are some really nice places. If you go down Santa Monica Boulevard, you'll see some really nice places. Well, actually, hang on. If you go down this boulevard, it's pretty nice. It's actually really nice.
So a couple of streets over, it's real nice.
Yeah, it's real nice in this street. Other streets, maybe not so much, but still not a bad place. In some areas, but then the really nice places are really, really expensive. So it's millions of dollars to live there, and then it's tens of thousands of dollars a month. So then you end up having to live north of Montana. Which is right here, by the way. That's not in Montana. That's just literally right here near Santa Monica. Dude, imagine how confusing that must be when people ask you where you live, and you live north of Montana, and you have to say this to someone. They're going to be like, oh, you mean Canada? No, I live north of Montana. Oh, you mean
Yeah, that's real confusing.
Yeah, that's really confusing. Shouldn't they rename this to, north of Santa Monica? That's where... That's where they are. It's why in the world is it called north of Montana?
North of the dump.
Man, dude, what the hell?
Kind of brutal.
Man, and then someone said, you weren't going to live there, were you? Nah, we didn't go out there, trying to figure out where in the world we were going to live. We know California's out of the picture because I can't take, any of my guns with me, and I like my guns, and I don't really want to depart with them, so that's kind of out of the picture. But still, there was nice places.
I'm just not willing to pay the prices out there. The prices are out of this world crazy. You'd have to have, some wild salary, 100,000 plus a year just to afford, the basics out there from the looks of it.
Yeah, literally, you would. That would be the only way you could make that happen, is to just do something like that. And then at that point, it's is that even worth it? Because you're pretty much you're working to just survive, and then you're not even really having a good time out there. So I don't know. I wouldn't live in LA. I don't really think I would live in California, but it was naturally beautiful, and there were nice places in California. That I will say. I just don't think it's really for me, though, if y'all know what I mean. It's not really my kind of a place. Not that, really, to say this in all honesty either, not that, Alabama's really my place either. I like Alabama, and I like living here and everything, but there are things about Alabama that are incredibly annoying and tough to deal with. The roads are always crumbling, and we get new prisons, though. That's something that really, bothers everyone in Alabama a lot, if you ever ask them about it. So it's not like I'm saying, California sucks and Alabama's, the model state. Alabama sucks in its own ways, but still, it has some pluses that I find to be a little bit better than some of the things you get in California. But with that, I hope that does address it well. Also, Matthew, we have to look at Skid Row. We have to do it. We're here. We have to. Holy moly!
This actually doesn't look that bad. This is a nice street in Skid Row.
Yeah, this is actually not that bad. This is downtown Birmingham. But then we have a fortress right there, and we have street cleaners, interestingly enough, and what else do we have? Just folks lying out in the sun, and oh my heavens, actually it is kind of bad down here in Skid Row. Um,
Oh, hello.
hello. Oh my goodness, we
You went dark
flatlined.
for a minute.
We flatlined, Matthew. We flatlined. Oh my god, why in the world is this CLS 450 driving through the Skid Row?
I don't know. Like, I noticed that was something that happened a lot out there. Like, for some reason, people would bring the Lamborghinis and the Astons and all these, like, really expensive cars to, like, the really sketchy areas. I don't know if they were doing that on purpose. It's like, isn't that a little, like, out of place? Like, you're driving through a really, really rough area with, like, folks on the side of the street and stuff like that. And they'll come through, like, revving their Lamborghinis as loud as they can, like, right in front of them. It's like, what's the logic behind this? I don't really understand.
Man, it's the kind of logic of, if you're homeless, just don't be. Just buy a house. You know, it's like that kind of a mindset, I guess. I don't know. It's like, this is a really weird one, though. Like, I don't know why people do that out there. But still, let's see. I live in Minneapolis. Same stuff. Well, there's a reason why Minneapolis is pretty bad. It comes down to one person, honestly, but we'll leave it at that. But what in the world does Minneapolis look like? Because I've never looked at this place, man. Have you? Have you ever looked at this place a lot? Oh,
I have not, no.
dude, like the streets, like the paint's faded on everything. Like, huh? It doesn't actually
Man,
look.
I'm out here in these streets.
Actually, Matthew, you got to pick up the right accent. Aw, man, I'm out here in these streets. I was born and raised in the streets. Aw, man. But this isn't actually that bad. I mean, like, at least downtown. So where in the world would a bad place be in Minneapolis? Like, this place, Ventura Village, just sounds like it would end up being rough. So let's take a look. Actually, it's not. Like, this is actually, like, a normal middle-class, like, neighborhood here in Alabama. Actually, it might be high-class, maybe, but, not that bad. Honestly, like, not seeing anything that bad in, Minneapolis, to be entirely honest. Mid-City Industrial. What a name for a district of the city. Let's see here. Yeah, I don't know. Let's see. The warehouse district might be something. That's going to be industrial, though. Well, what the hell? This is actually nice. Like, like a place like the warehouse district, you expect it to be like football hooligan land, like people beating each other's asses in the street for fun, but nah, this is pretty yuppie. Like, not gonna lie, Sunrise, yep, this is yuppie. Pura Lima. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Minneapolis isn't bad. Well, the street's cracking, but that's not too bad. But yeah, I don't have respect for the people who say they grew up in the streets of Minneapolis, because it doesn't, like, at least from what I'm seeing, I'm sure there's a rough spot, but it doesn't really look like it's incredibly rough, at least around the surrounding downtown area. Maybe out in the suburbs it is, but we don't have enough time to look at all of them. But anyways,
I just feel like if anybody really looks at any of these places and they're like, oh, like I had it rough in Minneapolis or something like that, or oh, I had it rough over here or over there, I don't think anybody really understands. I'm looking at these places, I'm thinking, the places really just don't compare to where we're from, I don't think. They don't really compare. If you go to backwoods Alabama and say, okay, I'm going to start from first grade, go to 12th grade there, and I'm just going to stay here and stuff like that. It's not hell on earth. I'm not going to make it out to seem like it's like hell on earth or something, but it's like a whole different world than like even looking in Minneapolis or something like that. It's a whole different animal out there. I don't know if you're thinking that, Enforcer, but every time I see a place, I'm thinking, huh, that's the place I've been talking about. It's bad. It's like, it doesn't compare to where we're from, really.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, even, like, Hollywood in LA, like, it's bad. Like, you wouldn't want to be there, but it's like Montgomery, Alabama or something like that. It's like, it's not like incomprehensibly bad. It's just, it's bad, and it's not a place you'd want to be. Like, Matthew, should we show them our hometown and, like, one of the streets in that town that was pretty rough?
Oh, well, I mean, with Wetumpka, like you're talking about Wetumpka?
Yeah, I'm talking about Wetumpka.
Like, they have that really nice street now. So if you show like the downtown Wetumpka, it looks really nice because that TV show came through and kind of spruced it up a little bit. But there is like the Wetumpka hood like kind of thing going on over there. But generally speaking, the downtown Wetumpka is not that bad.
This was like the hood for our town, and like when we say that, like, it was kind of rough around here, like most people would avoid it. Our school bus had to like kind of like drive through this area, so we would end up like getting like a first-hand like look into our small town hood. It was a really like rough place because someone actually would like live in these houses, like this one, like boarded up with plywood. Like, you would just see people coming in and out of them. Now, I don't know if they were doing a drug sale in there. I would doubt anyone's living in a house like that. But a lot of this area just looked like that. It was pretty damn bad. And so whenever we see people saying, oh, it's bad, like this was a small town. And usually small towns aren't incredibly bad, but this was horrendous. Like it was usually rough. Let me see here. Let me think of another street that would be rough. Alabama Street was rough. Let me drop y'all down here. Like this is what we call rough. Like this is what it would be. And it was rough. Like especially like when you would pass through at certain like times of the day, like there would just be like just like straight up like almost gang stuff happening around these streets. And it's like a very small town. Like that's the weird thing about it, is that like these couple of blocks over here near the city cemetery and the elementary school was like the hood. Like the elementary school was literally on the border of the hood, and you would just, you know, like deal with that every day, and it was nothing. But then there was the mega hood, which was down here in Montgomery. Like Montgomery is a mega hood. Like that's all it is. There's not a nice part of Montgomery left. Like maybe the only part that like counts is Cloverdale, old Cloverdale. But beyond that, the rest of it's like freaking horrendous. It's incredibly dangerous down there. Like it's gotten so bad that people are fleeing Montgomery in masses because the murder rate's skyrocketing, crime is just rampant. Like the city police are hardly doing anything. Like it's
had to bring in
insane.
the state for like a special task force to get a hold of the crime down there because it got so bad. The state had to send in people.
Yeah, it's really bad down in Montgomery, and Wetumpka would kind of get a little bit of that, and Prattville kind of got a little bit of that too, because these are kind of like the suburbs, I guess you could call them, of Montgomery is Prattville and Wetumpka, and not really Elmore, but Elmore kind of counts, I guess, and Millbrook, but not really. But anyways, this is what we consider to be fairly rough, are these areas, and let me see if I can drop y'all down in Montgomery and give you an idea of what rough looks like. Would McGee Road, Matthew, be a good place to bring him to? Like, I think it would be.
Maybe. I'll bring him over to that abandoned mall over here.
Yeah, this is the place. This is the place. So let me pull y'all back a little bit down the road. Here we go. Wait a minute. Did they build this new? Dude, they built a high school onto the abandoned mall.
Yes, that magnet school that they put there. But yeah, this entire thing over here off to the left of the school, which the school is an addition, that entire thing was Montgomery Mall. It was like a really like nice mall like back in the day. I still vaguely remember it when I was really small. But the thing went completely under. It got taken over by gang violence, and there was like shootings here happening all the time, and it was like absolute hell. You couldn't go there or you'd get shot. So the whole thing shut down, and the city bought it. Then they put the city police department in it, like the fire department, and they started using it as a city place. And the whole like parking lot was just totally empty, and they let the thing overgrow, and it turned into like straight up hell like out here. Like this was the rough side of town. If you went down the street this way, I think you come around to Atlanta Highway, like somewhere down the way. I don't know if it's around here or not. Yeah, it's bad out here. Like you just knew not to drive over here.
Yeah, and if you did drive through here, you made sure to drive really fast because locking the doors wasn't going to save you. If anything was going to happen, they were just going to shoot through your window and kill you. So it was really rough through here. I think you can kind of get the idea that it was kind of rough. I mean, it looks a little rough, I guess, but I tell you something, y'all, like Google Maps just doesn't do it justice on Street View. Like maybe that's the case with other places because it doesn't even look as bad as it really does in real life. But if you ever went through here, you would know it was rough a place. You'd be like, this is really rough. I also remember I lost a tooth in this place, Matthew. Remember that? This furniture store? Like we went here this one time. I lost a baby tooth in there because we were so little when we were coming over here. This was before the mall went down and this whole area turned into like a slum. Like I remember I lost a baby tooth in that store. And I just wandered around holding it. I was like, what the hell do I do with this thing? But anyways.
I can tell you though, I see people saying it looks normal. It looks like semi-decent from the Google Street View. I assure you, I am not making this up. Like everybody I know that has lived there, this is the bad side of town where it's very dangerous. Like just believe me and trust me on that one. Like the Google Maps here is not doing it justice. It's really bad in real life.
I'm about to bring him, Matthew, to an experience. We're bringing him down Marshall Street. This is one of the streets. So this is like normal Montgomery, Alabama. This is it. And these houses are occupied, by the way, like those one with the wood over the windows. That's occupied, by the way. This is
Also,
where
gangs roam these streets, by the way, like openly carrying like Dracos, AK-47s, and stuff like that, actively roaming the street. Like these are bad neighborhoods.
yeah, these are really bad. Like this is what is like most of Montgomery, Alabama. Like just to find y'all a specific spot that I know of, and it's like, yep, this is it. This is it. Like this is all of Montgomery, Alabama. And so when people like are like check out like the hood, this is what we're comparing it to is places like this because this is what we think of as the hood. This is actually like legitimately scary. It's really dangerous. Like people get killed down here all the time. People don't even know about it sometimes because it's not even reported. That kind of stuff. And then when people are like, hey, check out like this place, and then we go there and we're like, this is nowhere close because like, at least the buildings are maintained and the streets are nice. Like down here, you don't even get that at all. So yeah, that's kind of what, you know, we're from. Like this is where we're from. And the crazy thing is that we don't really like, we don't act hard or anything. And that's the thing that really like gets me going with other people is like people be like, oh man, I grew up in the streets. I'm hard. I grew up in Minneapolis. And it doesn't even look close to that. And that's actually where we grew up. And it's like, that's you just can't, like you can't sell that to me because it's like we know what actual like toughness is, like a tough living kind of a style or a space. That's Montgomery, and that's Wetumpka, kind of, not really Wetumpka, but more so Montgomery. And so when other people are like talking about where they grew up and it's like upper class or high class compared to where we're from, it's like that's stupid to me. It's like, why in the world are you even proud of that? And also, why in the world would you be proud of that at all? I'm not like proud I grew up in Montgomery or anything. You know, it's like I find that to actually be something you shouldn't be proud about. It's like it was not a great city. You know, it's like it had a lot of room for improvement. I don't really like find it prideful to live in squalor. You know, like just being
Oh
entirely
man,
honest.
like Montgomery was so bad. Like I said a moment ago, they had to bring in like the state authorities to come get like a grip on the crime because it was getting so out of control, and that was very recent. Also, they had to bring in the state to take the schools over because the schools were failing so bad in Montgomery, and there was so much violence in the schools. They had to install metal detectors at the front door of the school to make sure the kids weren't bringing in firearms because they were shooting and killing each other every day. And I know several people that stepped foot in Montgomery schools for one day. Two people I know got stabbed
Yeah.
on literally the first day by the gangs. They had to leave the school, and then they had to get put into a different school. They went to another school, got stabbed or like almost shanked again, and then had to get totally taken out and get homeschooled. Like it was that bad. And there's metal detectors everywhere. We've actually been into a couple of these because our JRTC used to go down here for competitions, and the school wasn't in session, by the way, so there wasn't any of that shooting going on. But it was rough. You could see the metal detectors at the doors. The school was really run down. It looked like a prison, basically, like down there, like in the whole place. And you had to drive through the hood to get to the school. Like, yeah, I think this might be it right here.
Yep, this is it.
Yep,
Sidney
that's
Lanier.
This place, man, goodness gracious, like busted out windows in some of the rooms. It was rough. I'm like, y'all call this a school?
Man, and remember, like we went and looked around, and all of the paint in the school, by the way, just to let y'all know, is lead based. Like it's lead based paint still in that school. They shut it down, I think, like a few years ago, finally. But all of the paint in the school was lead based because they hadn't repainted or anything, and it was chipping off the walls. Like it was literally chipping off. The floors were like bulbed outwards, like upwards from water and stuff like that, water damage and everything. It was the worst thing we had ever seen. We were really blown away by it. And they don't even have a listing anymore for Sidney Lanier because it shut down. It doesn't even exist technically. But if I could find you all the pictures that we took back in the day, I deleted them off of my phone, but they were horrendous. Like it was it was the worst school that I had ever seen. And then the school next door, this one, which is brand new, George Washington Carver High School, I think it was called, or Carver High School. This one was like brand new, but it's still like as bad. Let me see if like there's no pictures of the inside, but it was trashed like in just a couple of years from when it was built. Like we went in there just a couple of years after the thing was made, and it had already been trashed. Like the walls had been ripped apart and everything. It was crazy. It was like this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. It's like a lawless, wild west world down here in Montgomery with like the schools, the way the streets are. It was rough. Like I'm really happy that we got out of there and we moved up here to Birmingham because even though Birmingham is bad, I still don't even think it's close to being what Montgomery was.
Yeah, and also I think this school right here was over here near the highway where there was like a bunch of like sketchy activity going on, like drug deals. There was also a lot of prostitutes over there around that street. Like I can't remember which one it is. It's like right off the interstate. It's I think it's Mobile Highway, if that's over here in the same vicinity or something like that. I don't know if I'm getting mixed up with the area or not. It's somewhere over here.
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah,
somewhere
I think
around
that
here.
might be it.
Yeah, here's Mobile
Yeah,
Highway.
it was bad down here. Like it was so bad. Like just open prostitution going on, drug deals going on. That was a place you didn't drive either, is Mobile Highway. You stayed away from there. Pretty much you stayed away from everywhere in Montgomery, but there were some areas that were so bad, like if you drove through, you were putting your life at risk.
Yeah, it was bad. Like it really was incredibly bad. And also I saw someone say something political. This is the capital of a state led by a certain party. Come on, don't drink the goofy Kool-Aid. Like every single city in most every city is in most every state is like this, no matter who's leading it. It's bad management, and people need to realize that it's not a certain party that you vote for that brings about a better city. It's good management that brings about a good city. So stop doing like this goofy game of like saying, oh, look, so and so runs this place and it looks like hell, because the honest truth is that it doesn't matter who's running it. It all looks like hell because none of these people actually know how to manage stuff, because they just get in, they're voted in on talking points, on not on actual management skills. That's the issue. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, at least the best I can. But still, that's what we consider to be the hood. If we had to tell y'all like what the hood was and what we're comparing it to, that's what we're comparing it to every time. And that's why you'll always hear us say, man, this isn't that bad. This is actually really nice, because for us it was. Like, let's see, where in the world, Matthew? Let's dox ourselves in way back in the day, like where we were. Where in the
Are you
world?
sure you want to do that?
Well, it wouldn't hurt, would it?
Well, it would, because if anybody has any good investigative skills, they could simply look up records and things like that, find our name, find our current location, and it leads to the current paper trail.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, we can't show that, but we could actually, if we wanted to, which we're not, but we could. Well, I was going to show y'all the street in which we actually were raised, because it was going downhill when we were being raised there, and it really went downhill afterwards. Oh, by the way, there's a CSX rail yard out here, actually, by the way. Not really used that much anymore, interestingly enough. The city's kind of fallen off, so the rail traffic isn't really that high through this area, but they do have this little locomotive maintenance area, and also it looks like due to the recent satellite imagery, crazily enough, Mandy, this place has almost also been abandoned as well. Because you remember when we used to drive by as kids through this area, they would have like dozens of freight locomotives out here ready to be serviced or ready to roll for the rail yard. And now they only have like a couple. It's like maybe 3 or 5 of them or so. It's like nothing.
I wouldn't be shocked if the railroads got scared and left.
Man, honestly, they probably are going to, because from what I know, the city of Montgomery has gone so far downhill, there's not even a lot of industries left alive to really require railroad freight services, like at all, hardly. But that is not the case, though, south of Montgomery, because they do have the giant Hyundai plant down here still, and they get loads and loads of business just loading cars up onto auto carriers and then shipping them out elsewhere. Really
They
crazy.
were having staffing problems though for a long time. Like you remember, they had some very like bad staffing problems. They couldn't find workers to work at the plant because they apparently couldn't find like qualified people to work out there because nobody would stay in Montgomery because it's so bad. So they had to lure people in with crazy salaries to get people here. I think they fixed the problem and they're back to like full capacity. But it was tough keeping people at this plant right here. Very hard.
Yeah, and also I heard something. I think this was a bit of a rumor that I heard, but I heard that they fixed the whole labor shortage thing. Also, by the way, to give you all an idea of how bad Montgomery is, Hyundai, which runs this plant, complained publicly that they were considering shutting down the plant and moving it elsewhere because there wasn't even a skilled enough labor pool in Montgomery to actually hire and run the Hyundai plant. Like that's actually really crazy when you hear about that, because that's one of the big things that Alabama does, is that we have a skilled enough workforce in the state to employ a lot of people in the automotive industry. We're actually the 5th largest automotive manufacturer here in America as a state. But Hyundai was about to have to leave Montgomery because there wasn't enough skilled workforce, or not enough skilled workforce in this area. But I heard a rumor that they just started to import more Koreans into the area on work visas and get them to work in the factories, not only in management, but also on the factory floor, because that's something that a lot of people may be interested to know. There's a Korean subpopulation in the city of Montgomery, not because of like, just like immigration trends or anything. It's literally just because of the Hyundai plant, because all of the Hyundai plant's management at this factory is all brought from South Korea. Like, they're literally flown over, and they just, pretty much like stay over here on a long-term visa, and they manage the plant for several years, and then they get sent back to South Korea. So I heard a rumor, I'm not sure if it's true, that they just literally started to pretty much import South Korean laborers to start working in the factory as well. But I don't know if that's true or not. I'd have to really look into that a lot more, because I'd find that to be a bit far-fetched and probably untenable finance-wise for this factory. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least about where we're from. But still, a huge thanks once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And thank you, Jacqueline, for the support and being all the way from Melbourne, Australia. Crazily enough, that's where the rabbit hole began. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Ari Soini, who puts in a $50 donation. Very generous support, and thank you very much to the Kiwi Wife and Pen for always supporting the channel as well. And they said, with the high level of street violence, gangs, accessibility to weapons, etc. in America, how would you combat this if you ran for and became the president?
That's a good question, Ari Sweeney. It doesn't really have to do with the weaponry, though, because I think it's fairly clear that human nature will lead some people down a path of violence, regardless of whatever weaponry is available to them. Like, that's kind of my take on it. Because if you look at cities where guns have been largely banned, or if you look at states where guns are heavily restricted, you just see that the crime moves into another category. Like, people start getting beat to death with hammers or stabbed to death with knives. Like, if people are violent, they're going to find a way to kill someone. That's largely my opinion. Doesn't matter if they're stabbing them, shooting them, blunt, forcing them to death, something along those lines. They're going to kill someone. It's just kind of in their nature. Kind of like how in Europe, instead of having shootings, you have stabbings or mass stabbings or something like that. It just, people are just violent. So the way that you have to curtail that is really the only way you can kind of curtail it. And this is something that a lot of people don't appreciate until you're from a place like Montgomery. Like, the people living in these areas even know it in Montgomery. You just have to have a really stringent police force that will crack down incredibly hard on the area. And a lot of people sit there and go, oh, that sounds wrong. But in Montgomery, people were begging for it, like literally. Like, that was like the big thing in the mayoral election before we left. Everyone was saying different ways of how they were going to deal with it. And one of the mayoral candidates, which literally lived where we just showed y'all near the Sydney Lanier High School, was talking about putting SWAT teams on the back of pickup trucks and just driving them through the hood. And if they saw anyone out with gang colors, they were just going to arrest them on the spot. Like, that's literally like what people are wanting in these areas, because you got to remember, there's people living there, and they're in the middle of pretty much a terrorist controlled territory for the large part. Like, the cops don't go there. They're too scared. You just have to crack down on that. Like, there's really no other way to do it. It's a violent answer for a violent problem, but that's all you can do. Because if you try and go about it in like this caring way, like, and not to deride the caring way, I mean, it's coming from a great place, but if you try that, it's never going to work, because these people aren't caring people. They're incredibly mean, brutal people. They're not nice people. I mean, if you went up to them, they're going to cut your throat and steal the phone out of your pocket. That's the kind of people these are, the kind of folks these people are. So you kind of had to go about dealing with them that way, And also on top of that, some people are being like, well, prisons don't really help them. They don't really, like, to be entirely honest, but that's kind of a whole other problem on its own. And that one's one that you can't really fix much, because that's kind of a state-to-state basis, and then almost every single state ends up with the same problem with that. So really all you can do is just crack down really heavily. Anyone out there with gang colors, anyone getting involved in gang activities, crack down on them. That's really all you can do. So
I just don't know if there's with Montgomery, like, when there's such like a big problem, like it's really a widespread problem, like the gang violence here. I think it could be that an area gets so far gone that's really hard to bring it back. And that's why it's very important to prevent things like this from getting so bad. Because, like, for example, I'm not really sure if Montgomery really can be saved when it comes to like trying to stop the violence there, because it's just the gangs are pervasive, and it's like the people that would not have joined a gang are joining gangs because that's what the whole like culture is let's join the gang and get involved with it. And you can send all the police you want into the area. You're going to have a hard time keeping police because there's so much to deal with on a constant basis. You're going to have to lock up the whole area because like everybody's gang affiliated. And then you're going to be filling up the prisons, those brand new ones that Alabama just built. So I just don't know. Like, you know, there's a little nice side of Montgomery that is not like mired by violence. I just don't know if you can get the bad side under control at this point.
And also, I saw Adam McLean say you got to uplift the poor, and that's a great idea, and I like the idea of that. It's a great one, honestly, and I wish that was something that could be done. But the problem is that the gangs, which are the real problem, they like writhe in the filth, like if you want to call it that. Like they just love it. Like they don't want to get out of poverty and living in a shithole. Like that's their whole thing. They're proud of it. They love it. They literally thrive in it. So that's one thing that they don't want to move out of. And so while you may be trying to help everyone else out, the gangs are literally just going to cancel that out completely, because any kind of efforts, any kind of success, they're going to smack it down. And so really, to deal with that at all, you have to be able to go in, deal with the gangs. I mean, just crack down as hard as you can, have them so scared they go into hiding, and then you can start trying to uplift everyone and try and improve the area. But until you actually stabilize the situation and control the situation, there's no way to start uplifting people out of it, because the situation is still ongoing and festering, meaning that no one is being uplifted. You're really just expending energy to get nowhere. So I would say crack down first, then uplift. But you can't do it backwards, because if you try and uplift and then crack down, you wasted a lot of efforts to really end up doing the thing you were going to have to do anyways.
You remember that one mayoral candidate that was there in Montgomery? He was running. He was the same guy that said put the police on the SWAT trucks and send them through the hood and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He was saying something about the kids are shooting and killing each other because they're simply bored and there's nothing to do. It's like, what the hell kind of kids are shooting and killing each other because they got bored?
No, better yet, dude. Remember his solution to that? Open up nightclubs that are open 24/7, and also, I'm not even kidding. This is what he said: more chicken shops. Like, I'm not kidding. That was his answer to that: 24/7 nightclubs and chicken shops. I was like,
He said to open the nightclubs. I do remember it now. He said open the nightclubs 24/7, so that way they can go in there and get drunk or something like that and be distracted by going to the bar, which that sounds like an equally bad thing to do. Or that would distract them from shooting and killing each other. It's like, dude, it's like, what the hell? It's like, is this the best idea possible, is to open strip clubs and bars and stuff like that? This is not a good idea.
Dude, we're not just gonna have angry gangsters. We're gonna have drunk, out of control angry gangsters. This is how we fix the problem here. It's like, this is the worst idea that I've ever heard. He didn't get elected, that guy. But that guy was a character. Everyone was making fun of this guy and memeing him for a while. Especially the whole put him on the trucks and let him ride thing. Like, that was a meme for a good bit. But that city was crazy.
Oh my God, man! That mayoral election was like a freaking comedy show. It was a sad comedy show because the whole place is in tatters and people really were hoping somebody would jump in there to try to fix it. But it was really not. Like, nobody in that race was prepared to fix anything. No. And the whole like campaign was like, it was like a high school election for like the class president or something. Oh. It was a joke. Like,
We flatlined. Flatlined. Hang on. I didn't want you to go through your monologue and then have no one hear it. So give us okay, it looks like we're coming back, and we're back. So go ahead.
So I was saying the whole mayoral election, like the whole debates and everything, was like a clown show. It was like the class election for the class president or something like that in high school. It was pathetic, and the whole thing was just a joke, and nobody was ready to fix nothing, man. It was just no hope.
Wait a minute, remember that guy who won the election, Matthew? And then we drove into downtown Montgomery like a month after, and the dude literally had like Kim Jong-un-ish versions of himself on like billboards everywhere. It was like it was so weird. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember that. That guy got caught on a hot mic talking about the people that voted for him like a dog too.
Oh
Like he was
yeah.
bashing the hell out of the people that voted for him. Called him I can't remember if he called them schmucks or what, but he was
Idiots.
bashing the people that voted him in.
He was calling them idiots, man. He was like, "Yeah, let those stupid idiots vote again." I'm sure that something like that. And I was like, "No way." He was crapping on everyone who voted for him, and I think he's still the mayor down there, crazily enough. But
Yeah, he's still there.
yeah, he's still there, and he still has like the communist-looking billboards around town. And he did like nothing, like really, like it hasn't improved. It's gotten worse actually while he's been mayor, but it wasn't like getting better or anything. It was like a constant like decline, and then he like sped ran it into the ground. So, anyways, not a great place, but that's what we know. That's
Oh
that's
dang man, we better move on. We've been on this thing for 30 minutes.
yeah, we have, but that's what we call home.
Oh,
But anyways, lag. Lag. Excuse me, sir. Oh no, he flatlined again. Oh no, damn. Oh dang, this was long. Hello, hello, hello.
Yes, I can hear you now.
Oh heavens, brother, lag. My goodness. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so moving on from that massive rabbit hole, we're moving on to this one, which goes to Made in Canada 182, who puts in a $20 donation, and thank you very much, Made in Canada, for that support. They say congrats on 275,000 subs, and long live the LSA. Proud to be a member for about a year now, and take one from the chat on me, please.
And thank you so much for the support, Made in Canada 182, and thank you for congratulating us on 275,000 subs. What a thing to know we've reached 275. Crazily enough, our big goal was 250, and now we're 25,000, really 26,000, almost above that at this point. And we will make sure to take a live chat in your honor. But a huge thanks to you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And what do we got, Matthew?
And this one goes to Stauntry Sinro, who says, will there be another mobilization inside of Russia?
Possibly. It probably will be coming next year or the year after that if the war keeps going. But it's not going to be happening this year, that's for sure. And so with that, I hope that does answer that fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to GunFox61, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, GunFox, for that support as well. Excuse me. And Gunfox said 9 of 29, 1668. English expedition to Hudson Bay. Excuse me, goodness. In 1668, English expedition to Hudson Bay led by Frenchman Medard Chouart des Groseilliers. He arrived in Nemskow, Rupert River, aboard the Nonsuch, beginning of Hudson Bay Company, and question from the chat.
And thank you so much for the support, and really cool to know that they found the Hudson Bay. But beyond that, I can say thank you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Thank you for sharing that little tidbit of info, this day in a history, and of course, thank you once again for supporting this channel and helping this thing to keep on running. And we will make sure to get a live chat in your honor. And so, what do we got, Matthew?
And this one goes to Mr. Larson, who says, what do we think about the winter? Have Ukraine got power for warmth?
The winter looks like it's going to be okay for Ukraine. They do have enough power production abilities to keep it somewhat warm. And I think things will largely be fine through the winter. If not, they have been able to come up with ways to keep people heated otherwise. And so with that, thank you once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and Gunfox put in another $20 donation, and thank you very much, Gunfox, for that support. He said, tweet messages for picture, and more today in history.
And thank you so much for the support, Gunfox61, and we will tweet messages for picture and more today in history. And Matthew, what does that mean?
We'll see. He means it's under our Twitter DMs, by the way. So go check the Twitter, and it's under Mac Wolf.
Peter, the Twitter's here.
And let's see here, Mac Wolf. Here we go. My heavens, we've found it. So here we are, and let's see what we have here. Oh, that's the F-16, man. Really cool. It's the one that we saw in the Netherlands. And let's see, 1829, first units of the London Metropolitan Police appear on the streets. That's actually one of the first police forces in the world, because before that, it was usually the town guard that would kind of serve as the police, but this was actually a uniform police service, the first, I believe, in the world for a metropolitan area. 480 BC, the Battle of Salamis, the Greek fleet under Themistocles defeated defeats the Persian fleet under Xerxes I. History of the day, YouTube is being a problem child. And 1567, War of Religion breaks out in France. The Huguenots try to kidnap King Charles IX, and more in Twitter DMs because of YouTube. And I gotta thank you so much once again for support Gunflock61 and sharing all of this interesting history with us, because the Metropolitan Police are actually kind of neat, at least their uniforms and all that stuff historically. But still, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well, and thank you once again, Gunflock61, for throwing in another day in a history. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one here is going to go to Davo LBC once again, and he puts in yet another $20 donation. And big shout out to Davo for, I believe, that is the second or third support of the night. We appreciate that. And Davo said, LSA Private Davo LBC reporting. And since you're talking about my country, but of course, my city is the LBC. And that being said, on another episode, you mentioned that Los Angeles was a dirty city. He said, let me help you with that answer. Gravity.
Hey, thank you for the support. That was the channel to keep on running. And that is pretty cool to know that you were from LA. And I wonder what part of LA, because there is a lot of LA. But beyond that, I got to thank you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I hope that one day we can return and take a look around a little bit more. Because while LA isn't the place I'd live, it was an interesting place to wander around and take a look at. So we probably will be back around this place once again sometime. I don't know when, probably years in the future. But still, a huge thanks to you once again. I hope that does address that quite well, at least the best I can. And with that, we're on to the next one. Thank you for the support. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. But Matthew, what do we have here? What do we have?
All right, so our next one goes to JJ Powder, who puts in a $12 donation. And thank you very much, JJ Powder, for that support. I don't know really what this super chat's about, I'll be honest with you. It's a little interesting. I think I'm going to have to refrain from reading it, but thank you very much for the support. And Enforcer, take a look at it.
And thank you for the support, JJ Powder. And oh heavens, you don't eat certain kinds of food. Get your hands on my awareness. I'll be on that. I gotta say, oh hot dogs, heavens, and we'll get involved in the war. And when do you think that will be? In Poland, does do we help? And I don't know when we get involved in the war. It requires certain things to happen. We don't know if those things are going to happen or not. But if they do happen, Poland will get involved. Heavens me. But still, thank you so much once again for the support, JJ Powder. Great heavens. Make sure get your hands off my weenus. Oh, this is the moment touch me on the weenus, people. Oh, but beyond that, thank you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one. But thank you once again.
And our next one here goes to Larry Champagne, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Larry, for that support. He said, much love to my LSA family and to the Enforcer and Enforcer Matt. And I got a joke. Knock, knock. Who is it? It's Hezno Balls, says Israel. Boom. And take one for the chat.
Hey, I gotta thank Larry Champagne over here for putting in the good jokes. And I gotta say, we love the LSA.
Wapachish, wapachish.
Man, that's because I'm beating myself over here because I can't stand the lag.
Whoa.
Not like that, though. Don't take it like that. Don't you do it. If I feel that.
Oh,
Matthew, let's go.
Jeffrey Tubin in the building, baby.
man, we're about to be like that guy on CNN where they're sitting there. And now for the weather from someone. What the hell is that? You know, it's like that one. And then they fire him, and then they rehire him, and then they fire him again. But anyways, what do we got for a live chat, Matthew?
All right, so the live chat question here goes to, let's see here. Goes to Nickelodeon, who says, would you say that Diddy's stash will be added to the U.S. National Oil Reserves?
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. That is diabolical right there. Man, there's more oil involved in Diddy's house than there was in the Teapot Dome scandal. I'll tell you that. And, yes, I think it will be added to the strategic oil reserve, but I don't know what kind of oil it is. But with that, I hope that does address that somewhat well, and we're on to the next one, I suppose. But big thanks to you once again. Many thanks.
Indeed. And our next one here goes to Pat and the Cats. Thank you very much, Pat and the Cats, for that $10 support.
Hey.
They said Iran would lose support from other Arabic countries that are in the good graces of America if they do a first strike against Israel.
And, possibly so. Let's see. But they really don't have a lot of support from other Arabic countries. I mean, really the only countries they kind of have support from are, Syria and maybe only a part of Syria. And that's about it, honestly, because, Iraq isn't really a big fan of them. Kuwait isn't a big fan of them. Afghanistan is almost going to war with them. Pakistan doesn't really like them. Turkey doesn't like them. Jordan doesn't like them. Saudi Arabia hates them. The UAE doesn't like them that much. Qatar is maybe on the fence. Bahrain's kind of on the fence. Yemen hates them. The Houthis like them, but they're kind of like a paid proxy. Oman doesn't really care. So I would actually have to say, I don't really think the other Arabic countries are really an issue, because I think everyone either doesn't really like them or hates them. But still, huge thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Corey Steegs, and he puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Corey, as well. He said, Roll Tide. And he said, who do you have for Bama/Georgia? I honestly don't follow football that much, Corey. I don't follow football really at all, to be honest. It's kind of unusual to be from Alabama and not follow football, because pretty much everybody around here is obsessed with it. But I'm very unique in that. I don't think the Enforcer follows it very much either. But since we're from Alabama, I will say go Alabama, I guess. But Enforcer, what say you?
What is the ball of the foot? I don't know. But beyond that, I will say indeed, sir. I don't know. I don't really follow sports all too much. We're usually too busy with our jobs. Our busy jobs. So sadly, I don't really know to be able to tell you. I'd have to declare ignorance on that one, actually. You very rarely try and do that these days, but I'd have to declare an ignorance on that one, Corey Steegs. But I do thank you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And you know, Matthew, someone in a second's about to go, no YouTuber of mine can't watch football, unsub or something like that. And it's going to be like, why? Why? It's like, what does that make sense? But anyways, we're on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to Duncan VR, who puts in an $11 donation, and thank you, Duncan, as well, for the support. And he has the animal noises in the super chat once again. He says, Secretary Blinky and Tony, cough, invite enforcers on hot dog or tours. Cough, ride in comfort on Iraq Express, meow, special cabin for Matt. Oh, thank you. With odors made just for him. That's really weird. He said, your host, The Fly, oh man, I'm telling you.
Man, we're gonna be going to Cryingville. Billions must cry. Dude, that's the slogan of the hot dog, man. Billions must weep. Or something like that. Or billions must cry. Some stupid thing along those lines. But heavens be. Thank you for the support, Duncan VR, and helping this channel keep on running. And great heavens. Thank you for throwing in the animal noises. Would it be a night without the animal noises? I dare say not. And I got to thank you once again for the support and having this channel keep on running, because it is folks like you who helped to make this channel possible. And so with that, thank you once again. I hope that does address that indubitably well. And we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to DJ Waffle, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, DJ Waffle, for that support and persevering as well, because YouTube was giving him a hard time. And also, I saw someone say something in the live chat about the YouTube issues that might be the cause of the problems, and it could make some sense. Apparently, YouTube's been cracking down very heavily on ad blockers and things like that on their website, because they want to make that ad money. They got to make that money. So that could maybe be part of the reason why maybe it's being interfered with. I don't know. But whatever it is, it's clearly a glitch on their side. So hopefully they fix it. But DJ Waffle said, greetings, LSA, and Slava Ukraine.
And greetings to you, and Slava Ukraini, DJ Waffle, and long live Lee Springer. I mean, thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Ari Soini yet again, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much. They said, great coverage in LSA, and will Lebanon mirror Gaza in the coming weeks, or will Israel show restraint?
Probably will mirror Gaza a lot, because the Israelis don't really show restraint with the airstrikes. They usually just go, extra mustard, extra mayo kind of a thing, you know, really just blanket the area sort of a deal. So I would say that quite well, and I think you want to give us support and help this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, where would we be right now? Heavens, we would be nowhere. But still, thank you once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one also goes to the Kiwi wife and Finn, Ari Suini, who puts in another 10 and says, what's the next LSA merch drop? I need more, LOL.
Probably the next LSA merch drop is going to be LSA flags. We were actually supposed to have that kind of rolling out almost by this point, but there's a decent amount of things going on in the background that kind of make it a little bit hard to plan logistically for that at the moment. So I was kind of putting a good bit of things on hold, to be entirely honest. So it may be a little bit while longer, but we think it's going to be a re-release of the LSA flags, since we're reaching almost a halfway point in between now and the next anniversary of the LSA. Looks like we're dealing with more lag again. Oh my heavens! Oh! Oh, I hate the lag. Oh, heavens.
Oh, we're back. We're back.
Oh my goodness, I hate the lag. So to answer that question again, should be probably soon. I don't know when, probably about in the next month or two. It's going to be a re-release of the flags because we're about the halfway point in between now and the next anniversary of the LSA, which I think is going to be like the 3rd anniversary of the LSA. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least the best I can. And with
Spiking up like crazy whenever just lag. Spiking up like crazy whenever just lag goes on like those.
Yes, it does. It does actually. Yes, heavens. Can you all hear us all? Can you hear us? Heavens be. Can you? Suppose. Oh, they can, I believe, Matthew. They can.
What do you know? We're back.
Hey, I think we are back. Are we back? And someone said, someone retracted the message. They said, if you disagree in the chat, you get banned. No, but if you say something stupid like that, you might get banned. So please say it one more time. I saw you retract the message, but I read it before you retracted it. But with that, Matthew banned him anyways. Great heavens. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that quite well. And with that, thank you once again, Kiwi Wife and Finn, for asking a great question. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one right here goes to Augustin Lara, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, Augustin, for that support as well. He said, nice try. Trying to tell people U-Haul's the shadow government. The old guard remembers when you admitted to be part of the lizard peoples. LSA, long live the lizard secret army.
Yeah, and I gotta thank you for his support. And that is a pretty funny one right there. I remember when a lot of people... Oh man, it was crazy. At the beginning of the war, there was all these conspiracy theorists that would come to this channel and be like, oh, you're funded by George Soros and you got poked by like the sword of a Kazul or something like that, and it was some crazy crap. And I was a lizard person, like Mark Zuckerberg and everything. It was crazy. But I remember back in the day when that was like a kind of a joke. But I still thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. But no, it's not the lizard people who run everything. They're just the underlings to Big U-Haul. But with that, thank you once again for the support. I hope that does address that quite well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, big shout out to Jason Carney as well as Lazarus 7049 and also Uncovered Cube. Jason put in a 10, Lazarus put in a 10 as well, and Uncovered Cube put in a 5. Without comments, that is, but huge shout out to the three of you, and thank you very much for supporting the channel, because all that support adds up and it helps us to keep the whole thing running and afloat, and it means a lot. And with that, we're jumping into our next super chat, which is going to go to Ari Soini yet again, who put in another 10 and said, my old man told me he met Neil Armstrong while working for IBM and doing work for NASA. And he said Neil did a magic trick where he removed my dad's watch without him noticing and then gave it back, 80s and 90s.
Oh, that's really cool, actually. That would be incredibly neat to have met Neil Armstrong and have him steal your watch. I would be honored. Like, honestly, I'd actually be honored. I'd be like, thank you, Mr. Neil, thank you, Mr. Armstrong, for stealing my watch. I'm very appreciative of that. But still, thank you once again for support and sharing that cool story. That's actually incredibly neat. And a big shout out to Kiwi Wife and Finn once again for the massive support and sharing an incredibly cool story with us. And so with that, thanks once again. And we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to CK Bold, who puts in a 5 and says, take a live chat question. And we shall, CK. And thank you very much for the usual, as always. And this one goes to Julian Britt, who says, how much of an army does Lebanon really have?
Lebanon doesn't really have much of an army. It's a very small one. Let me see if I can actually get a number. Lebanese armed forces. And let's see here. It is active personnel. There's only 80,000 service members in the Lebanese armed forces, meaning that their armed forces is about as small as the one in Belarus. So not that big. So I hope that does address that quite well indeed. And thank you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running and asking a very interesting question at that. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Paramecium 13, who puts in a 5 and says, reports of Nasrallah's death are greatly exaggerated. All 137 pieces of him are in perfect health. Some emasculated Hezbollah spokesman who had his nuts blown off by a pager a short while back.
Yes. Some people say that there was that they had a hint of nuttiness. But beyond that, I gotta say, thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I gotta say, pretty interesting, I'd have to say. I like that one, Paramecium. Pretty good joke. I like how you did that right there. But still, thank you once again. And we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have Adam McLean coming in with a $20 super chat. And thank you very much, Adam, for that support, of course. He said, LSA dating app is not a bad idea. What do you think?
LSA dating app, not a bad idea. Matthew, what do you think? What's your take?
I mean, it's an idea. It's interesting. The only problem is there's only about 9% female and about 90% male here. So the ratios are a little bit off, but it has a chance.
Man,
The
perfect.
competition will be fierce.
Perfect, Matthew. Just like every dating app, we're going to charge $70 a month for y'all to have a like 1% chance of finding anyone. It's going to be perfect, folks. It's going to kill. But with that,
And also, we're gonna have you swipe left and right and judge these people solely on their pictures and their looks, not by whether or not they're a good person or not, just by how they look. If they look sketchy ass, swipe them away. That's how it works.
And people are going to put absolutely brain dead things in their descriptions, like "I'm just here for a joke." It's like, sure you are, Jill. Sure you are. Like it's like, yep, you're desperate, aren't you? And you're just trying to hide it, right? We're going to see all kinds of incredible things on the LSA dating app. I think it'd be absolutely a wonderful idea, and I would give it the go ahead. I'd give it a green light. But sadly, I have to give it the red light though, because I'm not an exploitative piece of crap like the dating app people are, who've largely destroyed the dating scene in this beautiful nation of ours, because people just go to the dating apps, and then like the dating apps are very, very rigged, where you really don't find anyone. You just stay on it trying to find someone, because that's how they make money. So with that, I hope that does address that well, Adam McLean. I think it was a good for support. Not a bad idea if we really wanted to like rake it in, but I don't want to rake it in like that though. But still, thank you once again, and we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Cads, who puts in a 5. And thank you very much, Cads, for that 5 as well. They said, better to ask for forgiveness than for permission.
Oh, you've been listening to some really famous people, haven't you, Governor? And I'd agree with you. It's better to ask for forgiveness than for permission, because usually they give no permissions, and then you just go back and go, oh, I'm sorry. But still, thank you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who help to make this channel possible, cats. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Jody Mandelias, who puts in a 5 and says, wild footage of the Iron Dome and LSA forever.
And it was wild. It's always wild to watch the Iron Dome at work, because it's like a fireworks show, but it's weapons, which is the craziest thing about it. But still, thank you so much for the support, Jody Mandelias, and I hope that does address it quite well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we've also got a $5 super chat right here from Kuchulian343, and thank you very much for that support, by the way. And also, I just said here, I know you don't want to say that guy's real name, but can you tell me why you settled on Hot Dog Man and not something else? It's very specific. It's rooted in reality. It's rooted in reality. The fellow we're talking about actually worked as a hot dog salesman and actually had to quit the job because it was too much for him. So that's why he has the name Hot Dog Man, because that was his original career prospects. And now he's grifting it out on YouTube, and he's getting pissed on by pretty much everybody. But anyways, Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say, to give you a little bit more fleshed out story of that. So the guy worked as a seasonal carny, which is very weird, at a hot dog stand at a fair. Like, not like a carnival, but a fair, so there's like animals and stuff there apparently. And so recently, the guy quit the job, and I'm not kidding, because he said being a part-time carny at a hot dog stand was too much work. Now, I don't know how in the world that can be. You have to be like the umpteenth bum to say that being a seasonal carny at a hot dog stand is too much work, but that's what he did. And so, you know, I guess that is what it is. But he's still Hot Dog Man. Like, he'll never die. He'll never live that name down. It will never die. That will always be his name. Like, it will be Hot Dog Man until the end of time. And what's even better is that the name has stuck so well, his own community calls him the Hot Dog Man now, which I find to be very nice. I really appreciate that, because it was supposed to be just a thing for us to say, where we didn't say his stupid YouTube channel name and give him a plug, and then it actually spread. It's like one of those disses that you hear in like the political world these days, and it just sticks, and someone's known by that for like the rest of all time. That's what happened to him. And so I love it, really. I get a huge laugh out of thinking about that this guy is never going to be known for his actual channel. She's going to be known as the Hot Dog Man. And what's even worse is that he actually tried to make reason with it. He was like, look, y'all, I have to work as a part-time carny at a hot dog stand. It was a deal I couldn't refuse. And the guy said it like he was like writing the art of the deal or something like that. Like this was like a big money deal. It's like, dude, you're literally selling hot dogs at a stand at the fair. It's like, why are you making it sound like that? Just say, I liked the job. I thought it was fun. You know, something more sensible sounding than it was a deal I couldn't refuse. Like, it's not like they're paying you millions to serve hot dogs at the fair. But anyways, with that, I hope that does answer that question well, Kachillian. And thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Dark Warrior 137, who puts in a $5 donation as well. And thank you very much, Dark Warrior. He says, I get no respect around here. I get no respect. 3 years ago, I invaded a smaller nation, and instead they just grabbed rifles and shot at me. Oh man, it's terrible. It's terrible.
Oh man, I'm telling you. Oh man, I'm telling you, I get no respect around here. 3 years ago, I invaded a small nation. Oh man, a small one, you know what I mean? Oh man. And instead they just grabbed rifles and shot at me. Oh man, it's terrible. Oh man, I'm telling you. Oh, and I really get no respect around here. Even my parents hate me. Oh man. When I went back home, they picked up rifles too. Oh man.
But still, thank you so much for the support, Dark Warrior 137, and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing a possibility. We wouldn't be able to do Rodney on air. And so with that, thank you once again for the support. I hope that does address that quite well. And we're on to the next one. But thank you. Hello? Hello?
I think we're back now.
Is it me you're looking for? I can see it in your eyes. But anyways, we're on to the next one.
So this one goes to Frostbite Productions, who puts in a 5. He says, okay, Andrew, as an LSA vet, I recommend a 10M plus every stream, so you both can get food and beverages, making it a requirement. No excuses. LLT, LSA.
Yeah, I wish we could. But tonight was a bit of a special night. I really didn't have the chance to go and get like anything to eat or anything like that. There were things going on behind the scenes. But with that, I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that does address that quite well. And long live the Lee Spring Army, and the Lee Spring Army shall never die. And so with that, thank you once again, and we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Kachulian343 once again, who also puts in a 5 and says, I actually think it's not a bad idea. There's a lot of young, angry men in Ukraine, and this lets them get it out of their systems in a supervised way.
I suppose so. I mean, like that's one way to look at it. It's just that, you know, having the personal preferences I have, I just can't really see myself doing something like that. So then it's like, you know, it's like, I don't know about getting my ass beat in the middle of a field. Because, you know, like, I haven't really fought much in my life. It's very rare because there's not really a lot to start slinging fists over. So, you know, I don't really fight much. So I get my ass beat. Like, I know that. Now, if I had to fight, I will fight. But, you know, it's not going to be like, you know, Mike Tyson or anything like that. But when I look at stuff like that, it's like, that's just not what I do. Like, when I come home and I'm wanting to, like, just relax, I play video games or I go shoot at the range or something like that. I don't really go do anything that's like, like going to like Roundhouse or Fight Club or anything like that, you know. But still, I thank you for the support, and I hope that does address that fairly well. But still, a good point though, Kachillian. It probably is good for some, it's just not for me. So it's pretty bizarre when I see it. I'm like, what the hell? People would do that for fun? It's like that's not what I would do for fun. But still, thank you once again, and we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Ed, who puts in a 5 as well. He says, LSA, Irish Ed here. He says, does our strategic oil reserve hold crude oil or refined products? And what about other countries?
Our strategic oil reserve, from what I understand, largely holds crude oil because refined fuel products actually can expire after a while. So I believe our oil reserve is mostly crude oils. But then once again, that's just a layman's statement. I don't know enough about our strategic oil reserves to know for certain. From what I understand, it does also retain refined products because we do release strategic oil reserves sometimes to artificially decrease gasoline prices here in America along with diesel. So I would assume that it really includes all of it, but mostly crude oil, because crude oil doesn't really expire, but gasoline and diesel can. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. Also, I see some people talking about the whole singing thing, and I was like, what the hell? Like, I don't know, like, people used to like deride the singing. Like, I don't know if y'all are being sarcastic now or like serious. If it got better, I know y'all are lying. I think y'all are kidding around about the whole joking thing. Well, the whole singing thing. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to LSA Sergeant Figment, who puts in a 2 and says, LSA, hit the like button. That's an order.
Hey, and hit that like button. That is an order. You know what I mean? But still, thank you once again for support, LSA Sergeant Figment, and always being a real one and always telling the folks to hit that like button because we do massively appreciate that. And thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we got a 2 from Tyler Morton, who says, can NATO shoot down Russian nuke?
Can NATO shoot down Russian? It depends on what kind of a delivery system. If it's by an intermediate range ballistic missile, yes. If it's by a short range ballistic missile, yes. If it's by an intercontinental ballistic missile, it kind of gets a little iffy then, but hypothetically we might be able to. But we don't really know in practice if that would be entirely possible or not. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And Frank said, did you try and do an Elvis impression? Yeah, see, that's why I know it's bad, because he asked that, and that was supposed to be that little hello, kind of, and see, that was bad. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. Thank you once again for support, Tyler Morton, and help this channel keep on running. With that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Mark Andre Burnett, who puts in a $2 donation. And thank you very much, Mark, as always, for supporting the channel as well, and also for being a longtime channel legend as well. Hey. And with that, we're now moving on from our Super Chat segment. Once again, a huge shout out to everybody that donated tonight to help keep the channel running. And sadly, tonight, we don't have the Morse code decoders. I did not see a single Morse code decoder in the chat tonight. I don't know what was up with that, because we have a whole roster, but not one was here from what I could tell. Although one will probably pop up in a minute and say, I was here, you missed me. So if I did that, let me know. But with that, we're jumping into our live chat questions, and our first one goes to Judy, who says, do you think that Israel will keep moving through Lebanon?
Lebanon?
Lebanon.
I think they will keep moving through Lebanon. Probably further north. Probably to through the hills of southern Lebanon. Probably up to Beirut. Probably through Zahle. Maybe through Baalbek. They'll eventually probably occupy most of the country, though, in my opinion. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to WL, who says, did you see the reports of KGB personnel being sent to the frontline troops in Kursk?
Yes, we have actually heard about that for a little while. Sometimes they do mobilize FSB forces and move them up into the front, but usually they're a very irregular fighting force because they're not really trained or made for frontline fighting, but it has happened from time to time. So yes, we have heard about that. And so I hope that does address that quite well, and we are on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to, let's see here, Fell, who says, what forms of communication does Hezbollah have now that pagers and phones are sabotaged? Are they back to using the pigeon?
I think they are back to using pigeons, or they are back to using radios. Maybe radios, but those can be tapped pretty easily by the Israelis, but that's probably all they have left. And so I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And we got one from David Tablet. He says, does Zelensky get Secret Service protection while in the USA, or does Ukraine provide their own security?
Ukraine provides their own security. The Secret Service is usually never for foreign dignitaries. They're supposed to provide their own security and pay for that. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least from what I would know. I could be wrong, but that's what I know at the moment. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Del Elaticus. He says, does AGM mean air-to-ground missile?
Probably so. That's what I was going with. And let's see. What does AGM stand for? Missile. Air-to-ground. So what does BGM stand for? So BGM, let's see. B stands for surface attack. I don't know how in the world they got that one. The surface attack turns into a B, but apparently B is a surface-launched weapon, A is an air-launched weapon, but both of them stand for to-ground missile. So it's an air-to-ground missile, AGM, or a surface-launched ground missile, which is a BGM. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Uncovered Cube, who says, is Israel acting as a proxy for America? And if so, shouldn't we let them off the leash?
They largely are acting as a proxy for Iran. Really, Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis are all proxies of Iran, so we should let Israel off the leash, but at the same time, for some reason in America, there's bad optics when we deal with literal enemies of the Republic by just destroying them. So we end up telling Israel, oh, wait a minute, don't do anything to them. So that's kind of why. So with that, I hope that does address it well. I would let Israel off the leash completely, but the United States government right now has kind of a different agenda.
I think they're already off the leash. I'm kind of with Hypervigilance 1. I saw someone, let's see if I retweeted it. I did. It was the EU Foreign Affairs Chief, Joseph Borrell, says that nobody seems to be able to stop Netanyahu in Israel, and they seem to be on their own course. So I think it's sort of like a consensus at this point that Israel is sick and tired of appeasement, and they've been listening and following that line. You know, what's Israel supposed to do? Just go with their hands tied behind their back, or what?
I would agree with that. I would say it's really stupid when they do, because they'll sit there and talk about the Russians. They could invade us next. We have to be ready. And then they'll sit there with Israel and go, "Oh, wait a minute, those people massacred 2,000 of your folks. Why are you so mad? Why are you mad?" It's like, what are you, stupid? Sorry, I don't even get that kind of a mindset. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the second to last question of the night.
I also think the lag took out pretty much everything I said just then. That's a shame.
Most
but
of
anyways,
everything. And I was like, man, I don't want to interrupt you because you're on a roll. I was like, he's getting out good points. I was like, I just hope it comes back. And then it almost like didn't really until like the last.
That Wi-Fi, it's a son of a bitch, that Wi-Fi. I tell you what, I wish we had a backup Starlink, an Elon. I wish we could hook up an Elon. But anyways, jumping into our next question. Starlink, an Elon. I wish we could hook up an Elon. But anyways, jumping into our next question here. This one goes to James McEldoon, who says, do they count the Chinese golf carts as a full vehicle loss?
Yes, they do count those as a full vehicle loss. Does it really count? There's a good argument that it wouldn't, but they do count those. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person to throw in the lucky last question of the night?
All right, and that one goes to Digifix, and he says, with the current SMO, does Putin still believe that denazification is still the main goal, and what say you?
No, certainly not. The current main goal is not denazification any longer. Clearly, it's just trying to gain territory that Russia deems necessary to further expansion, and that's kind of the crux of the war at this point. The whole denazification thing kind of melted away really quickly, and it's just about defeating Ukraine and absorbing a large part of it into Russia, and then creating a puppet state out of the remainder of it. And so with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well, at least the best I can. And with that, we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got to thank every single one of y'all once again for watching. About 70,000 people have watched this stream since it began, and there's still about 4,000 of y'all here right now. And at the peak tonight, there was 9.7 thousand of y'all here. I got to thank you all so much once again for watching. If y'all did enjoy, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We're on air every single day of the week except for Mondays at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And I got to thank you all once again for watching. Good night, good luck, take care, stay safe. Slava Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die.
And with that, good night, folks. And once again, huge thanks for another great stream tonight. A very big news night for Israel and also Ukraine as well. And I suspect that tomorrow is going to be another big news day as well, because things are popping off pretty much everywhere around the world, and it's not getting under control anytime soon. But with that, Slava Ukraine, Hiram Slava. Get some rest, and we'll see you tomorrow, and good night.
Yes. The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards